Good morning, good afternoon, good day. It's Ocean Robbins here. So excited that in just about 15 minutes now, we're going to begin our broadcast of episode 2 in the Food Revolution Summit docu-series, Healthy People, Healthy Planet. Today's topic is boosting brain health, the science of sharpening your mind and protecting your memory. We're going to dive into how to future-proof your brain. You'll discover how cutting-edge science is showing us that what we eat, how we sleep, and even how we move can dramatically impact memory, clarity, and long-term cognitive health. We'll explore a remarkable study that improved brain function for 71% of early-stage Alzheimer's patients without drugs or surgery. This is a landmark discovery. You'll learn what the gut-brain connection really means and why it matters. You'll find out about the nutrients that are essential for mental sharpness and even the simple daily habit that can slash dementia risk by 40%. This is about empowering you with the tools you need to protect your brain and to unlock its full potential for now and for years to come. Yesterday, we started the summit with episode 1, Embracing Vitality at Every Stage of Life, and the response has been mind-blowing. Em said, wow, what a wonderful start to the summit. A big thank you to Ocean, Nicole, and the team for your tremendous efforts. For years, we've been following FRN from Australia, and we've been saying to our friends and family that you are truly a leader of helping people to make lifestyle changing easily and showing people how to eat real food and saving lives. Thank you, Em. Welcome from Australia. We are so glad you are with us and part of this movement. Blessings and huge gratitude to you. Pat said, I'm always amazed that no matter how much you've learned, you can still learn so much more. I was worried this year would be a repeat of last year. I'm so glad I took the chance and decided to join up. Thank you. I only wish some of those in this world who could so benefit from this, but are unable to do so due to poverty, could have access. I hope it will be okay if I take what I have learned and share it with those communities. Pat, thank you for being here. There is always so much more to learn. I get to interview so many people every year for this summit, and every time I'm like blown away by how much more there is to learn. New studies, new research, new understandings, new breakthroughs, new perspectives, all of which can help us to feel better and live longer and be healthier. You know what, at one level you could say, eat healthy food, right? Eat more vegetables and less processed junk, and you get huge benefits from something that simple. But there are also so many nuances and ways to optimize and finesse and improve and take it deeper. And there's so much urgency. The cost of the status quo is devastating to communities, to nations, to governments, to families. Leading cause of bankruptcy, medical care. Leading cause of insolvency for governments is going to be medical care, because in the US alone, we're spending trillions of dollars a year on disease symptom management. So what we have before us is an incredible opportunity to save lives, to save money, to save economies, and to help heal our world. And thank you for being a part of this with us. And yes, please spread the word to people that you love. Everybody watching, think about the people you know and what this means, not just for you, but for them. You know, if every single one of us in this summit reached 10 more people with this message, then instead of 250,000 people, we'd be 2.5 million people. And what if those people spread the word? Folks, this can change. We can change the world. Let us be a part of this movement. Consider yourself maybe a food revolutionary. Fauzi said, many thanks Ocean and FRN for hosting this docu-series. I have already shared the episode 1 on my social media to inform more people to watch and listen to the interviews. Wonderful, Fauzi. Thank you for spreading the word. Melinda said, reading John Robbins' Food Revolution book was the reason I started a vegan diet 20 years ago. My daughter read the same book in 2011 and overnight decided to go vegan. She's now a medical doctor and has followed the plant-based coaching certification program. Melinda, how wonderful. Thank you for being in this journey. And it is so sweet when families get to share in the journey together. I'm so happy to hear that your daughter is a doctor and sounds like she's en route to be a plant-based coach. That is so wonderful. For those who don't know, FRN hosts a plant-based coaching certification where if you want to become a coach and spread the word and inspire other people, we teach you how to do that. You get to go really deep with nutritional knowledge, also coaching in the science of behavior change, and you also learn about impact and how to make a difference in the world. And that program is available. You can learn more at certification.foodrevolution.org. Diana said, my husband had a long list of plants he didn't like before he wanted to try a vegan diet to see if it helped with his high cholesterol. After a month of 100% vegan eating, he said that he now loves those plants he used to hate. And by the way, his cholesterol numbers reduced to near perfection. Plus, he said everything feels and works better. Not going back. Oh, Diana, what a wonderful story. Congratulations to your husband and to you. I'm so happy to hear this. And just a month, and he's brought his cholesterol down to near perfect. And I want to highlight so everybody catches this. It's not just about labs, folks. He said everything feels and works better. This is so wonderful. And we hear these stories all the time. So stay tuned, everybody, if you want to learn more about the power of healthy eating to change lives like Diana and her husband have experienced. Aster said hello from Oak Harbor, Washington. Excited to learn. I started to eat plant-based to help improve my mental health. Well, Aster, hello to you, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. And I want to say how courageous and wise it is that you have chosen to explore how diet and lifestyle can support your mental health. That is a powerful act of self-care. You know, we often talk about food and heart health or blood sugar, but as you're going to see today, the connection between what we eat and how we feel emotionally, mentally, even spiritually is profound. Whole plant foods can help reduce inflammation. They can stabilize blood sugar. They can nourish your gut microbiome. And all of this is deeply tied to the function of your brain and to your emotional well-being. And beyond the nutrients, there's something really empowering about aligning your food choices with your values and with your goals for your life. It can bring a sense of clarity and purpose and hope. So welcome to the summit, and I'm so glad you're here. And today is going to rock your world because you're going to learn a lot more about food and brain health, including mental health today. And we're cheering you on and wishing you every success as you move forward on a path to hopefully ever increasing wellness, wholeness, and peace. If you just joined us, I'm Ocean Robbins, and I'm sharing a few welcoming words. We'll be starting episode 2 in the Food Revolution Summit in about 8 minutes. You know, Alzheimer's rates have been rising for decades, and recently so have been rates of mental illness. More and more people have been feeling unsatisfied with their lives, frustrated with the status quo, and many of us are also feeling high levels of anxiety about the state of the world around us. With all that's going on right now, it's more important than ever to give your body and your brain and your nervous system and your emotional well-being every possible advantage. And as you're going to learn today, your diet and lifestyle choices can make a massive difference. They can increase your ability to respond creatively and effectively to the challenges that life brings. They can help you preserve your memory for the long term and think with more clarity and more resilience. As you watch today's episode, which will be starting in about 7 minutes, I want to invite you to think about what this information means to you and to consider how you can apply it in your life. Keep looking for those nuggets and those breakthroughs and those epiphanies, right? Because there's so many of them. You're going to hear about studies where eating more blueberries can reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and extend brain health by up to 2 years. You're going to hear about studies showing that eating more greens could extend your brain health by 11 years. You're going to hear about studies with exercise. Every one of these could be a life changer for you or for somebody you love. We'll be starting the next episode in about 6 minutes, and I'm so excited about it. Thousands of people have already gathered, and as we go through this day, please continue to post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page so that you can engage with the community and we can see what you're thinking and we can answer some of your questions. Belinda said, so happy to be here. I tagged this as the most wonderful time of the year. Aggie said, wow, so much vital information. I'm a nurse and at work catching what I can and glad I paid so that I may review and watch later on. Trying to take notes too. This is amazing and I'm looking forward to all of it. I've been without meat and dairy for 4 weeks. What a great feeling. Less inflammation too. I'm a breast cancer survivor and doing what I can to stay healthy. Thank you for this program. Aggie, thank you for being here and participating as fully as you can. And thanks for investing in the empowerment package so that you can catch whatever you miss and absorb it later. That's a great move. And I'm so grateful, not just for you, but also for your patients. Bless the nurses of this world. Nurses are so precious to all of us and our healthcare system. And, research shows that nurses are the most popular part of healthcare for good reason, because the nursing profession is so wonderful. And the fact that you're learning these skills and this information means maybe you can help some of your patients as well. So bless you and thank you for being here. Chrissy from Crossville, Tennessee said, ready to go 100% plant-based. I am a transplant patient, double, and very tired of feeling poorly, as is my husband. The doctor is okay with plant-based, but I will need to be careful of some of the foods that are high in potassium and keep getting labs to make sure this will work for me. Looking forward to this new adventure. Chrissy, thank you so much for sharing your story. And wow, what a courageous step you're taking. As a double transplant recipient, you've already been through a lot. And the fact that you're ready to embrace a new way of nourishing your body is incredibly inspiring. Going plant-based can be a powerful choice for energy, for immune health, and for overall vitality. And you're right, being mindful of potassium-rich foods and staying on top of your labs is really important given your medical background. And to be super clear, this is not medical advice. None of this summit is. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional around your specific reality and needs, but we're here to share what we can by way of coaching, research, and education. And the beautiful thing is that a plant-based lifestyle can be very flexible. With the right guidance and a little personalization, it really can work in harmony with your particular needs. You might find that gently cooked veggies, lower potassium fruits like apples and berries, and protein-rich foods like tofu and tempeh and legumes in amounts that work for you can support your energy and your healing. And of course, working with a plant-knowledgeable dietitian or coach can help make the journey smoother. This really is an adventure, and one filled with a lot of hope and a lot of healing and a lot of delicious possibilities. And we're so glad you're here, and we're sending you love every step of the way. Michelle said, 3 weeks eating whole foods plant-based. My A1C went from 6.1 to 5.7. I lost 13 pounds, and my joint pain is gone. My energy level is through the roof, and I'm sleeping better. I am in awe. Wow, Michelle. 3 weeks. Wonderful. Just eating whole foods, plant-based foods for 3 weeks, you lowered your A1C from 6.1 to 5.7. You lost 13 pounds. You said goodbye to joint pain. You've gained more energy, and you're sleeping better. I just want to emphasize all that because it is so wonderful, and I can see why you're in awe, and I'm right there with you. This is why we do what we do, because food really can be powerful medicine. When we give our bodies what they need, whole, vibrant, nutrient-rich foods, our bodies often respond with gratitude and with healing and with more vitality. And your story is such a beautiful reminder that change is possible, that even in a short time, our lives can feel very, very different. Thank you so much for sharing your light with us and for showing other people what's possible. Keep going. You're on a life-affirming path, and I know you can feel that. Natasha from Maryland said, trying to get healthy. I'm obese and need to lose weight and get healthier before my pre-diabetes becomes diabetes. Natasha, thank you for your honesty and for your courage. Reaching out and naming where you are and what you're struggling with and declaring your intentions and goals can be a powerful first step. And I want you to know you're not alone. Obesity and pre-diabetes are incredibly common today, not because people lack willpower, but because we're surrounded by a toxic food system that pulls us constantly in the wrong direction. But the great news is your body is incredibly responsive. When you start giving it the nourishment that it needs, when you give it the fuel that it needs, the fiber, the antioxidants, the healthy fats, things can change. Your blood sugar can stabilize, your energy can rise, your body can begin to release excess weight gently and sustainably. So start with simple and delicious shifts. Add more greens. Try a hearty veggie soup or a colorful grain bowl or any of the recipes of the day in this summit. Focus on foods that make you feel nourished and satisfied, not deprived. And drink plenty of water because your body, because water can really help move things through. And you also want to move your body in ways that bring you joy and keep being kind to yourself along the way. You're here and you're showing up, and you are in the right place at the right time. So stay with us, keep learning, stay curious, and you are going to learn a lot today. All right, folks, it's almost time for us to move into episode 2 of the summit. As we move through this day, please continue to post and engage in the broadcast page comments. Share your top takeaways, your aha moments, and what this all means to you. And make sure you refresh the comments using the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. After this episode, I'll be back with you to answer questions, share insights, and give away prizes. All right, here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is the time for change. Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
Your brain is amazing. From the moment you were born, it's been learning, growing, and changing. It helps you make decisions, solve problems, and reach your goals. But today, for billions of brains, something has gone wrong. Anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues are rising fast. Millions of people are struggling with brain fog, and many are heading toward dementia.
Here's a fact that surprises a lot of people. 2 out of 3 people with Alzheimer's are women. And for women in their 60s, the chance of developing Alzheimer's is twice as high as getting breast cancer. Alzheimer's doesn't just hurt the person with the disease, it also affects their families, their friends, caregivers in deep and painful ways.
But there's hope. Research involving millions of people shows that the main causes of Alzheimer's are things we can control. This means you've got the power to protect your brain and keep it strong so you can not just prevent dementia, you can also enjoy a clearer mind and a happier life. And that's what today's episode is all about. I'm Ocean Robbins.
And I'm Nicole D'Andrea Russert.
And you're watching the 2025 Food Revolution Summit.
When you lose your memories, you lose everything. And so it's really the most devastating diagnosis. And people tend to spiral downward. And it's a fundamentally isolating experience anyway. You're like, wait, where did I put my keys? And where did I leave my wallet and my glasses? And you don't want to go out because you don't want to embarrass yourself. And next thing you know, you have this diagnosis. And then they tell you, don't leave them alone, or don't let them wander off, or take away their car keys. Suddenly your world keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's just devastating.
After seeing my amazing grandfather go through this whole journey of dementia, the wonderful person that he was, the wonderful things that he did for the world, and to have had the privilege of living with him in the same house and seeing how dementia slowly and gradually took parts of him away from us was transformative at a cellular level, where it was quite frightening as a child to see a person going from changing the world and being a hero to us all, to not remembering our names, to not remembering how to button up his shirt or eat his food. What really happens in the brain when somebody goes through that journey?
So dementia is a syndrome. It's a broad term that really refers to the cognitive deficits, a set of cognitive deficits. Dementia, since it's a syndrome, it can be caused by any number of different diseases. Alzheimer's disease is a type of disease that causes dementia. Sometimes we use the term dementia and Alzheimer's disease almost synonymously, but they aren't. They're not synonyms of one another. There are other diseases like Parkinson's disease actually that can cause dementia. Dementia is kind of an umbrella term that refers to the cognitive problems that emerge. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of disease that causes dementia.
It can be hard to tell what's dementia and what's so-called normal aging because memory loss and dementia are both so tragically normal. In fact, more than half of all Americans over the age of 85 have Alzheimer's disease.
And with every memory loss and every Alzheimer's diagnosis made, families and communities are impacted too. The emotional toll is profound. Loved ones watch someone they care about slowly lose memories, independence, and connections. And faced with the burden of care, they often make immense personal sacrifices, sometimes even putting their own lives and well-being on hold. In the US alone, more than 11 million family members, friends, and neighbors provide unpaid care for loved ones with dementia, shouldering both emotional and financial burdens.
And if the economic realities are real, Alzheimer's is one of the most expensive diseases for families and for society. The financial strain of medical bills and long-term care can be overwhelming. In fact, unpaid caregivers provided nearly $350 billion worth of care in 2023 in the US alone. For many, this leads to financial hardship, with caregivers sacrificing income, retirement savings, and job stability to meet the relentless demands of a devastating disease.
If everything continues to keep going the way it's going, without much prospects of reversal, effective treatment, or prevention, we will, by 2050, be reaching approximately $1 trillion annually in caring for and treating for Alzheimer's disease. What this means is that Alzheimer's disease by itself might be able to bankrupt our healthcare system. So it's really imperative that we find solutions to Alzheimer's disease, dementia more broadly, for not only the people that suffer from those diseases, but also for the caregivers and the healthcare providers that are providing that support for those people.
We look at an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure as it relates to Alzheimer's. Even a pound isn't going to cut it. You can get all the pounds you want. There is no cure. We all can probably name a couple of cancer survivors. Name one Alzheimer's survivor. I would challenge anybody to come up with a name. So, the issue is then that when you talk about cost of these measures, it's negative. Why? Because in addition to preserving and protecting the brain, the lifestyle choices that we would engage to be healthy for the brain or salubrious are the same ones that we would choose for a healthy heart, healthy immune system, cancer prevention, and really across the board of those diseases that are most threatening to our lives, which are the chronic degenerative conditions according to the World Health Organization. Not COVID, not war, not trauma, not any other infectious disease. Globally, it is the chronic infectious disease that ranks as number one in terms of a category that kills people on this planet. So therefore, it's a huge cost-saving approach because people are not going to be at higher risk for those other conditions as well. The metabolic issues, the diabetes, the hypertension, the overweight, the dyslipidemias are all going to be much reduced when people engage better diet.
The costs of Alzheimer's are rising fast, and they're already a leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Almost no family can really afford it, and it turns out that this disease impacts low-income communities the most.
Exactly, Ocean. And this leads us to something else we need to explore. How do social and environmental factors intertwine with biological ones to shape risk?
And more importantly, what can we do to change that story? Let's look into the intersection of health disparities, risk factors, and prevention. And then we'll explore strategies that can make a difference for everyone. Because as you will see, no matter what your background is or what you've been through, we can all take real and meaningful action.
People that identify as Black or African American have higher rates of type 2 diabetes. They have higher rates of cardiovascular conditions. And so we know all of this, but this, I think, also translates to higher rates of Alzheimer's disease, dementia more generally, and earlier decline in cognitive performance, cognitive function. So we see this earlier in the lifespan than what we do in individuals that identify as white. So this is a major problem, and in my opinion, this is something as a culture, as a society, we should be finding extremely embarrassing that such health disparities exist. And I tend to I tend to think about some of these racial and ethnic disparities, not necessarily in terms of the ethnic and racial components, but as the socio-demographic and health factors, social demographics that contribute to the conditions that elevate risk for Alzheimer's disease. The fact that there might be higher levels of stress, reduced access to facilities, socioeconomic conditions, educational differences, discrimination, and systemic racism. All of these things are contributing to behaviors and factors that then increase risk for Alzheimer's disease. There's also, obviously, increased rates of cardiovascular and cardiometabolic conditions. So individuals that identify as Black or African American often have higher rates of hypertension, higher rates of obesity, higher rates of type 2 diabetes. All of these are risk factors for increased Alzheimer's disease risk.
When we look at the drivers of Alzheimer's disease, it's driven by a number of things. It can be driven by obesity. It can be driven by diabetes. It can be driven by cardiovascular disease. If you have a population that has a higher risk of these things, for whatever reason, they in turn will increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, somebody might say, well, the problems are genetic and you can encourage people to change their diets all you want to, but nothing's going to work, or there's a racial difference. We have done studies where we have brought in people, large group of white people, large group of Black research participants. And what we discover is that if we suggest a plant-based diet, low-fat, healthy vegan diet, and we give people moderate support in doing it and answer questions, you see absolutely zero difference in their ability to comply with the diet, adhere with the diet, the amount of weight they lose, the improvements they have in blood sugar, the improvements they have in lipids, exactly the same. I mean, you're just wiping out any kind of disparity with this.
It's remarkable how lifestyle changes can level the playing field, reducing risk factors across diverse populations. It turns out, regardless of the color of your skin, how much money you've got in the bank, or even the traumas you may have endured, it's always helpful to give your body the best possible fuel.
Yes, and we're going to focus most of this episode on exactly that. But first, let's look at what conventional medicine has to offer. Given how significant a problem Alzheimer's is, are there any medications or treatments that can help or even provide a solution?
We don't have any meaningful drugs to treat our most aggressive brain disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We don't have drugs that can alter the time course of these diseases in any meaningful way. Yes, we have drugs to treat symptoms. Certainly, the drugs that we use in Parkinson's to treat tremor and rigidity are effective, but at the same time, there's an inexorable progression downhill in that clinical entity, as well as certainly in Alzheimer's disease. There have been developed over the past couple of years, been under study for many years, research revealing that the drugs that are targeting a protein called beta amyloid may have some efficacy, and they've been deeply investigated. And a couple of them have been released and approved by the FDA that target, again, that are amyloid based, with the assumption that the cause of Alzheimer's is the accumulation and the detrimental effects within the brain of this protein, because there is a very interesting correlation between the amount of amyloid visualized in the brain on specific types of brain scans, or markers of amyloid in the spinal fluid, for example, and now even blood testing, there's a bit of a correlation between that and Alzheimer's risk and progression of Alzheimer's. But it turns out that these drugs are by and large ineffective. One drug called Leqembi, or lecanemab, was published in the New England Journal of Medicine and really only was able to slow the inexorable decline of Alzheimer's clinically in an 18-month period by about 3 months. And that is in the face of dramatic risk, including brain shrinkage across the board in all patients who were given the drug versus placebo, as well as a 22 to 28% increased risk of something called ARIA, amyloid related imaging abnormalities. In other words, small hemorrhages in the brain. That's not a good thing.
Billions and billions of dollars have been spent in the last 20 years to try to develop a drug to treat Alzheimer's, but only 3 have gotten FDA approval. And all 3 simply slow down the rate at which you get worse. But getting worse more, and not even by that much, but getting worse more slowly is still getting worse. And so the suicide rate in the first month after people have been diagnosed is 7 times higher because it takes all their hope away. They say, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones or Ms. Smith, you've got Alzheimer's. If there's anything you want to do it soon because you don't have much time left. Get your affairs in order. It's only going to get worse over time. At best, we can slow it down a little bit. And all 3 drugs are very expensive. The first drug, aducanumab, was $56,000. The second one, lecanemab, is about $26,000. The third one, donanemab, is $30,000 a person per year. And they all have, 20% of people have what's called ARIA, which is an acronym for side effects like bleeding into your brain or brain swelling or things like that, because you're pulling, in a sense, amyloid out of your brain. And amyloid is the kind of the protein that kind of gunks up and short circuits your brain. It's an inflammatory response.
It's sobering to hear about the limitations of current drugs and immense costs financially and emotionally of relying on treatments that offer so little for such a devastating disease. But could diet and lifestyle make a difference?
Dr. Dean Ornish has led groundbreaking work demonstrating that a comprehensive lifestyle medicine approach can be more effective than drugs or surgery for not only preventing but also reversing cardiovascular disease, prostate cancer, and a number of other conditions. In fact, the Ornish program was the first lifestyle treatment program ever to be approved for coverage by Medicare and the major U.S. insurance companies.
So Dr. Ornish decided to see if maybe by any chance his program might also be effective with early stage Alzheimer's, or what's often called mild cognitive impairment.
For the last 48 years, I've been directing clinical trials showing what a powerful difference these simple lifestyle changes can make. What we eat, in this case, a whole foods plant-based diet, low in fat and sugar, moderate exercise, both aerobic and strength training, meditation and other yoga-based stress management techniques, and support groups, love and bringing people together, not just to help support the other aspects of the program, but as a powerful intervention in its own right, or to reduce it to its essence, to eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. And I think our unique contribution has been to use these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art scientific measures to prove how powerful these very simple and low-tech and low-cost interventions can be. And the more diseases we study, the more evidence we have to show how powerful these approaches can be. I decided to find out. So I figure whatever we show, if we show that these same intensive lifestyle changes can improve cognition and function, in a sense reverse the progression of early stage Alzheimer's, that'll be amazing. If we show that it does nothing, then that'll be an important finding. People need to know not to fool themselves. But so I figured whatever we showed, it wasn't to prove we could reverse it, it was to find out what happened, which is what we do for all of our studies. And so what we found is that after just 20 weeks in a classical randomized controlled trial, half of the people who had early Alzheimer's disease were randomly assigned into 2 groups. One got the intensive lifestyle intervention. The other group was told, just do whatever you've been doing. And then we used the standard 4 measures of cognition that are used in all the FDA drug trials. What we found in our study was that Overall, in 3 of the 4 measures of cognition, there were statistically significant differences between the groups after just 20 weeks, and the 4th was of borderline significance. And if we took out one statistical outlier, all 4 measures were significant. And 3 of the 4 measures showed improvement in cognition overall. Not every patient got better, but overall there was improvement. And one of the 4 tests to me is the most clinically meaningful, called the Clinical Global Impression of Change, because they not only interview the patient, but also the spouse or partner. So you can really get their perspective as well. And what we found is that 71% of the people stopped or reversed the progression of their Alzheimer's disease, whereas in the randomized control group, none of them got better and 68% got worse. And so these differences were highly statistically significant.
I got to say, the page completely turned. 2024, Dr. Dean Ornish, who I got to say has never been afraid to take on a big challenge. He showed that heart disease could be reversed. Prostate cancer, you could change the course of it. So he brought in people. He changed their diet and lifestyle in a variety of ways. And he was extremely supportive of them. But these are people who were not healthy people, and he was trying to stave off dementia. These were people who had the beginnings of dementia already. They were having trouble. In some cases, they said, I don't dare drive anymore, or their family members would take away the keys. Diet, exercise, fair amount of support. Of people getting together. I mean, it's no big thing. It's not psychotherapy. It's just getting people together as a group. Some nutritional supplements thrown in too. And what he found was in a control group that didn't make these changes, people did what people do, is they get worse. 60 to 70% of the people were continuing to decline. Okay, the intervention group, 70% of them are getting better or holding steady. So the first thing is, you could start to actually see in at least a big subset of these people, improvements, kind of going back to their old self. If you dissect these findings a little bit, and I've talked with Dean about this, 40% of the people were actually getting better. 30% were staying the same, and 30% were getting worse in the intervention group. And so the question is why? And the answer is so important. The people who got better were the people who really did it. The people who said, diet changes, plant-based diet, I'll do it. And the people who got worse were the people who said, well, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it a couple of days a week, or it's my birthday, so I'm not going to follow the diet. And the point is, if you don't take the drug, if it's like an antibiotic, your infection won't go away. If you don't do the diet changes, you're not going to get better. The drug is a healthy diet and lifestyle. And I think it's such an important lesson because we work with a lot of people in research studies. We work with them in our clinic. And if sometimes a person will say to me, well, if I do it part way, will that help? Okay, you come to me, you got pneumonia, and I'm going to say, here's an antibiotic, take it 3 times a day. And you say, well, what if I take it every other day? Or if I take it maybe just once a day instead of 3 times? What's going to happen is your pneumonia is going to kill you. So if a healthy diet works, let's prescribe what we know works.
It's hard to reverse a chronic disease. And the reason we were the first to show it in all these different conditions is that most people didn't go far enough. But now we're finding we can give people hope in an area that matters most that nothing else works in. And if it works this well for people who already have early Alzheimer's, it probably works even better to help prevent it. And there are these new artificial intelligence enhanced technologies for being able to diagnose Alzheimer's up to 10 years before it becomes clinically apparent. But a lot of people say, why would I want to know if I'm likely to get this horrible disease if I can't do anything about it? It'll just make me crazy. But now it looks like maybe you can. And you probably don't have to make such big changes to prevent it as you do to reverse it. And clearly, the earlier you intervene, the more likely it's to be effective.
Well, the doctor gave the statement that that I had Alzheimer's, and kind of more of a negative approach to it, I think. He wasn't positive at all in terms of what I could see, or do in the future.
It was very difficult. I mean, it's a horrible diagnosis to receive for anyone, because as of today, there's no cure. There's nothing really that anybody could do to help you. And I remember clearly the neurologist saying, if there's anything you'd like to do, do it in the next couple of years. and get your life in order, get your finances in order, make plans, because you've only got a couple of good years left. So it's devastating. So being a part of this study has changed that for us totally. It has given hope.
You mentioned before that you were doing a lot of CFO kind of work, chief financial officer work, and you weren't able to do that, and you weren't able to do your household finances either, I presume. Is that right?
Correct.
But now, tell me what's changed in that regard.
I'm back to reconciling our finances on a monthly basis. I keep up to date with our the investments and any changes that need to take place with that.
Is that a change from a year ago, where you can do things now that you couldn't do a year ago?
Yes. Well, it's kind of like doing a happy dance. Because it's so much a part of my life, and who I am and was. It's kind of hard, saying that part of me was just gone, and so I just it's a lot of self-worth that comes back.
I'd say several years ago, Mike quit reading. It just wasn't worth it to him. He would forget what he read. He'd have to start over. So just in the last, I would say, about 4 months, he's reading again.
Before, it would take me weeks to finish a book. And now I'm able to pick up a book and to read and to remember what I've read and be able to finish that book within 3 to 4 days.
Being a part of this study, it's cutting edge, even though it's simple. I mean, it's a plant-based diet, lifestyle adjustments with exercise and stress management, and being part of group support. It's very simple, and so it's doable for anyone, which makes it even more exciting. To think that could change your brain is an exciting thing to be a part of. And it really brings me a lot of joy just to know that this is a cutting-edge experience, and hopefully it's going to make a huge difference for millions of people around the world. It's kind of mind-boggling, really, to think that what we're doing here in the San Francisco Bay Area is possibly going to change the way the world looks at Alzheimer's disease. That's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's hard to overstate the potential significance of this study. We'd previously seen that diet and lifestyle impacted cardiovascular health, diabetes risk, and even the odds of developing dementia. But here we have the first case control ever conducted, demonstrating that at least for some people who already had mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's, there was an actual reversal of symptoms. Some of them were literally able to regain functions they had thought were lost forever, like Tammy.
So we've got several small businesses, property management, and I used to do all the books for that, and then obviously didn't. And then this year, I said, would you like some help? And he says, yeah, here's this stack of stuff that we need to go through. So I organized it all, put it all into piles with pieces of paper on headers so I could hand it to him. But then I took it a step farther, and unbeknownst to him, I created spreadsheets. They're all color coordinated. It has a face sheet on it that says, this is what we earned, this is what we spent, here's our net, this is our whatever's all written out, and said, here you go, it's all done.
It was astonishing.
Why?
Well, for one, I didn't have that expectation. I had the expectation of, just go assemble these in some sort of an order so then I can go back and take care of it. But when she came back to me, they were not only all categorized in a proper order, or beneficial order, more importantly, they were all done correctly. Yeah. And for me and for Tammy, it was like absolute jubilation. It was exciting. Do you realize what you just accomplished was such a remarkable
Down to using the calculator, which I hadn't. And he says, well, I'm going to check your math even with the calculator. I said, calculator's not going to lie, but go ahead. And his numbers matched mine.
Wow.
I'm like, yay.
No, my numbers matched yours.
That's true. That's true.
Now, was that something that you couldn't have done a year ago?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think it's been 4 or 5 years probably that I've really gotten involved to that degree.
What might have happened?
Well, I would, one, get really frustrated with myself, and then I'd get the paperwork all mixed up, and I'd put them in the wrong pile, or I wouldn't add it up properly, and it became so confusing. I just hand him this jumble of papers, essentially, and say, I did the best I could. Good luck.
So how does it feel to be able to do things that you didn't think you'd be able to do before? How does that make you feel about yourself?
I think a deep sense of identity is returning. It's given me like a new lease on life, and yet it's a familiarity and something I always prided myself in. And so it's like, yes, I'm coming back. So really good.
You're coming back like
I was prior to the disease being diagnosed.
Yeah, one of the other study participants said, I feel like I'm me again. Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, an older but better version of me. Yeah, I really feel that way.
Whatever the Alzheimer's process is, there's something in Dr. Ornish's program with healthy foods and physical activity and counseling seems to be able to reverse. Now, these are people with mild cognitive impairment, and it's not someone with far advanced Alzheimer's who, is basically non-functional. But those early stages where the memory is going, it seems to be quite amenable to diet and lifestyle changes. Bless him for doing this work. How brave of him, and he's been to the front lines. Now he's reporting back. This too is reversible with a healthy plant-based diet, and it gives us all hope.
For me, of all the work we've done, it's really the most meaningful, because at least with all these other conditions, there are at least some drugs or surgical interventions or stents or bypasses or whatever that had some benefit, but nothing really works that well for Alzheimer's. And so now we can really give many people new hope and new choices in the area that matters most, that nothing else seems to work very well in.
The study that Dr. Ornish and his team led was fairly small, and the subjects were people who had very early stage Alzheimer's or mild cognitive impairment. But they were all facing serious and life-changing symptoms. Many of them had their lives profoundly changed. We don't know what will happen to them in the years ahead, and as researchers are very fond of saying, more research is needed. But just the fact that it's possible to experience a reversal of symptoms for some people is profoundly hopeful.
It really is, Ocean. We have so much more to learn. And it seems that when we put our attention more on what we eat and how we live, it can be a lot more generative than spending tens of billions of dollars researching drugs. And of course, if ever some miracle drug is developed that actually works to cure Alzheimer's, we'll all be thrilled.
Yeah.
But at the moment, there isn't one. And all of us are eating every single day.
We really are. And when we eat, we aren't just feeding ourselves, we're also feeding our microbiome. And this brings us to another compelling piece of the puzzle that has researchers fascinated. Scientists call it the gut-brain axis.
So over the years, we've seen more and more research papers coming out on what we call the gut-brain axis, or the gut microbiome brain axis. And it's absolutely fascinating. The connections between our gut and our brain are multidimensional and bidirectional. So what's that mean? There's lots of different ways that our gut and our brain connect to each other, directly through nerves, biologically active substances, including neurotransmitters, which are produced by the bacteria that live in our bowel, through hormones and other signaling mechanisms that come from our gut, enter our bloodstream, and then have a direct effect on our brain.
Let's just talk about this relationship of the gut and the brain. Beyond the idea that the foods we consume contain things that are important for the brain, like various chemicals in our foods, various vitamins, minerals, various plant products, etc., that directly, when they are absorbed, affect the brain. But I'd like to focus for a moment more on how do our food choices affect the health of the gut, and why would we care? The reason we care gets back to this fundamental mechanism of inflammation that relates to neurodegenerative issues, that relates to mental health issues. Recognizing that one of the fundamental roles of our gut bacteria is the maintenance of the integrity of the gut lining. When we threaten those gut bacteria, they can't do their job. The integrity of the gut lining is then challenged. When the gut lining is challenged and becomes a bit permeable, then we have a situation in which various types of components within the gut make their way across the gut lining. And guess what? Who's going to see that first? The immune system. 70% of the immune cells in your body exist clustered around the gut. We call this the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or the GALT. And they are there, these cells are there to see what you've been eating and to respond to the various chemicals that come across the gut lining. In a normal situation, they're not very challenged because not very much is getting through, aside from our nutrients and, of course, water. But when things are coming across the gut lining, like bacteria or bacterial breakdown products or other components that shouldn't make their way through, then the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or the immune system around the gut, begins to change. And it changes in such a way that it begins signaling the rest of the body that we've been basically invaded, and that ultimately translates to the production of, you guessed it, inflammatory chemicals. So this then ties together what goes on in the brain, because these inflammatory mediators make their way to the brain and are very disruptive. This then connects for us the multiple dots of the foods that we choose to eat to the presence or absence of brain inflammation and the risk or risk reduction for neurodegenerative diseases. When you contextualize food in that way, then you really begin to value your choices, don't you?
And all of it is determined mostly by the kind of foods that we eat. So if we can control that, if we can control the kind of foods that we eat to support our gut microbiome, that significantly impacts our brain health as well.
You know, we used to think that eating fiber-rich foods was only important for, like, you know, regularity or something. But now we realize that, in fact, fiber was like, by definition, kind of an inert substance. It's like non-digestible, right? And so it just makes it all the way down to the colon, where it just kind of bulks up things. But now we realize, oh, wait a second. Fiber is the primary prebiotic for our good gut bugs, right? The fiber feeders are the good bugs in our colon, and that's what they eat. And so if we starve our microbial self, we can run into problems, what's called dysbiosis, which is an unhealthy balance of bacteria in our gut, which we can cure by just eating enough prebiotics, which is fiber-resistant starch, found only one place by definition, and that's in plant foods, found only one place in concentrated, and that's whole plant foods. Particularly the drier plant foods, such as whole grains and legumes. People are like, oh, I eat lots of fruits and vegetables, don't have to worry about fiber. But, you know, fruits and vegetables, fruits are about 90% water, vegetables are about 80% water. And so, yeah, they have fiber, but actually not as much as getting something like whole grains and beans, which is about 70% water. And you actually get more fiber per serving, particularly legumes, which are the fiber superstars. And no wonder every single blue zone in history, every longest lived population in the world centered their diets around some form of legume as their primary protein source. So that's what feeds our good gut bugs. Then what these good gut bugs do with the fiber is that they produce, as a byproduct, what are called postbiotics, like butyrate, propionate, and acetate, the short-chain fatty acids that are absorbed through the colon wall into our bloodstream, circulate throughout our body, even cross the blood-brain barrier into our brain, have effects on boosting our mental health, have effects on decreasing inflammation, boosting our immune function. And so we feed them, they feed us right back. So it's critically important to maintain good gut health. How do we do that? Fiber-rich foods.
seems like every day we're learning more about our guts, about our brains, and about what really nurtures our cognitive capacity, our mental health, and our ability to sustain vibrant, long, and healthy lives. It turns out that our brains are impacted by a lot more than just the food on our plates. Dr. Dean Ornish summarizes the emerging field of lifestyle medicine with simple words: eat better, stress less, love more, and move more.
Yeah. So what does this actually mean? And how can you put it to work in your life?
I think people have heard these things before, that if you want to be healthy, you've got to eat right, you got to exercise, get enough sleep, reduce stress, and have good relationships with other people. And there's no reason to assume that the brain would have any different answer to that request. And indeed, those are the pillars of a brain healthy lifestyle approach. And they're profoundly, profoundly influential. As a matter of fact, the Lancet, a very well-respected medical journal, just published an indication that dementia risk could be cut in half if people were to adopt 14 different lifestyle measures, including various dietary changes, not smoking, avoiding head trauma by wearing a helmet, managing blood pressure, exercising, paying attention to the quality and quantity of sleep that an individual gets, various other things. But just again, the notion that we are the arbiters, we are the architects of our brain's destiny, I think does a very important thing. It hits the ball back across the net to our side of the court and asks us, okay, now what do we do? How are we going to return that serve? Because, on the other side, waiting by living your life come what may, waiting for a pharmaceutical fix is a strategy, but thus far there's nothing really there. So we've got to pay attention to these lifestyle issues. It's all there is.
We created an acronym that was easy for our patients to remember. After studying the brain, after being in the realm of epidemiology and preventive medicine, I did a dual neurology or preventive medicine residency. And, after noticing these factors, we thought it would be really cool to have an acronym so that we could say it within the 20 or 30 minutes that we have with our patients. And we came up with neuro. N stands for nutrition, E stands for exercise, U stands for unwind or stress management, R stands for restorative sleep, and O represents optimization of cognitive activity. And if I had to give you a very quick rundown of these factors, all of them have been, studied. There is a lot of scientific evidence supporting these factors. We know that, say, for example, as far as nutrition is concerned, if we eat a dietary pattern that is healthy, it can prevent Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. One study showed that it prevents it up to 53%. We know that exercise grows the brain literally by size. We know that stress management, if it's not managed appropriately, it can shrink our brain. But that doesn't mean that we should stay away from all kinds of stressors. It's all about identifying good stresses and bad stresses and using the good stresses to increase neuroplasticity. Restorative sleep cleanses the brain. And O is optimization of cognitive activity. It's that social connectedness. It's the purpose that we create for ourselves that grows the brain. So those are some of the factors, and I just went over them really quickly.
How important it is connection and love and the social aspect in mental health. It is so very important. So our Surgeon General has said that there is an epidemic of loneliness. And so even with the ways that we can communicate online and social media and things like that, there is still something very special about interpersonal and in-person connection. So, sometimes it's not possible, but there are quite a few people who are isolated, older parents, grandparents who live alone, away from their children or grandchildren, people who are isolated in nursing homes or living facilities, even thinking about children who are removed from their homes and in foster care and away from the people that are familiar to them. We're social beings, and we need in-person communication, sometimes just even in-person touch. People respond, and that's a part of who we are and what makes us human. So when we don't have that, it can be a tremendous deficit for individuals and contribute to anxiety, depression in particular. Ways that people can connect with others on a deeper level is to find communities, right? If it's in your neighborhood, or it might be a community of faith, a religious group, or a social organization if you have a certain hobby or craft that you do. I know of individuals who are older who go to the regular YMCA for exercise classes or for different other social connection classes. So finding ways to connect with people when you have things in common.
Human connection is critically important to brain health and to mental health too. Now, when you combine connection with exercise or with sharing healthy food or with a community of faith or a yoga class or some other form of stress reduction, you get kind of a twofer. You can be eating better and loving more, or exercising and loving more and stressing less all at the same time.
What's more, we are more likely to stick with a healthy habit when we have positive social motivation to do so. We're more likely to stick with a new routine when we have social accountability and peer support.
Yeah.
So lifestyle medicine really does work in synergy.
It's all connected. And we're also connected to what happens around us, including our environment and even the air that we breathe.
Over the last 2 years, we're actually seeing a lot of data coming in to show that things like air pollution can increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease to the point where it was actually added to the list of risk factors during midlife.
Environmental factors are huge and may very well be playing a major role in the ever-increasing prevalence of our most feared neurodegenerative conditions, but also mental health issues as well. And while there are a lot of issues out there, we know that, more and more our air is threatened by the presence of particulates. We call these PM, the ones that are studied the most, PM 2.5 or 2.5 microns in diameter, cross-sectional diameter. And these are particularly threatening because we breathe them in. They can get through the blood-brain barrier. They get through the lungs, and they are powerful amplifiers of, you guessed it, inflammation. We've seen lots of research that shows strong correlations between exposure to these PM 2.5s and risk for Alzheimer's disease. And how do those studies get performed? Well, one of the ways that these studies are carried out is to look at data that looks at how close does an individual live to a major highway. Highways are a great source of these particles from the car exhaust, but also, more importantly, from the tires. As your tires wear and lift up things from the asphalt, they're powerfully generating these particles that are invisible because they're so small. So having said that, these research studies show that there's a perfect relationship relating proximity to a major highway and Alzheimer's risk at population level. But as we move forward in time with climate change, I think our exposure to these PM 2.5s is just going to increase dramatically because of fires. So, this is something now that we're exposed to. But as we've seen in the past couple of years, smoke transcends borders. Smoke doesn't really respect borders. We saw a really horrendous event in New York City a couple of years ago from fires that were 1,000 miles away in northeastern Canada. So it's going to happen more and more. And while there might be no fire where you live or no fire within 500 miles, the world is getting warmer and areas are getting drier and therefore at high risk for fire. And it's something we absolutely need to think about. And it's not just the fact that when we're outdoors, we're breathing the campfire. It's not campfire. It's buildings, it's material that's burning that is highly toxic. And what are these particles? They are small particles of whatever it is that's burning. So it's not like it's time to bust out the marshmallows because somebody's got a campfire going because the forest is burning. In Canada, it's buildings as well. It's all kinds of structures that we have to think about that are contributing to the real danger as it relates to what's in that smoke. And it comes inside too. It makes its way within our walls into our homes. And it's why we've got to pay attention to the threat posed by the poisoning of our atmosphere by this particulate matter, and therefore consider what can we do at home. And I think it's there that we now must consider purifying our indoor air by getting an air purifier and having one in the rooms, in each room in which we spend a lot of time, like the dining room, like the living room, and certainly the bedroom, getting an air purifier and being able to use an air purifier that at the same time it's purifying the air is able to give you a readout as to what is the quality of that air in terms of particulate matter that we've been discussing.
Air quality is really important. And while you can't control the air in the whole world, you spend a lot of your time indoors. And having a quality air purifier can make a huge difference, especially if you change the filters on schedule.
Yes. There's so much in our world that we can't change, but there's also a great deal in our lives that we can change. One of the external things that a lot of us struggle with is stress. And most of us can't do a heck of a lot about the stress of a cranky boss or a moody spouse or about how much traffic there is on the road, but we do have a remarkable ability to influence the levels of cortisol and adrenaline that our bodies secrete in response. And what scientists are discovering now is that how you relate to stress has a profound impact on your brain.
As far as stress is concerned, there have been studies that have looked at people who are chronic worriers or chronic stressors, and they have smaller gray matter volume. They have smaller hippocampi as well that helps us memorize things and hold information in our brain.
In the Philadelphia VA Medical Center where I work, we have something called the Brain Wellness Clinic where we teach all the different things that we think are important for brain health, and stress management is an important one. The VA obviously has a lot of PTSD and anxiety and other symptoms like that. And we found through well-done trials that things like mindfulness meditation, guided imagery, other types of stress reduction can clearly help mental function and decrease mental symptoms like depression and anxiety and things like that.
I use some very basic techniques in terms of relaxation techniques. So things that I recommend for children and adolescents and adults to do may be deep breathing. Mm-hmm. So stopping and taking a deep breath in and releasing it. And doing that repetitively. Sometimes I will ask them to think of a place that is relaxing, going to the beach, going to the mountains, and then walk through an exercise in terms of visualization, closing your eyes and just imagining yourself, visioning yourself there, and trying to experience that environment with all your senses, hearing birds flying by, or if you're at the beach, hearing water, or if you're at a lake, hearing the water, and just listening to birds singing, those sorts of, and actually nature sounds, particularly bird singing, is something that can be very relaxing. And then another one that I'll sometimes do with older children and adults are progressive muscle relaxation. So when people are anxious and tense, you might feel it in your muscles. So going through a series of exercise of contracting your muscle groups and relaxing, and contracting and relaxing, doing that with the arms and then maybe the gut and then the legs. And that can be even something that you do at night. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep, doing what we call progressive muscle relaxation can be really helpful.
It's extraordinary to consider that something as simple as breathing deeply or visualizing a peaceful place can reshape your brain, can calm your mind, and that this could actually influence the health of your brain. Stress is inevitable, but the tools we use to manage it can make a massive difference.
So we've been looking at pillars of lifestyle medicine, and we've touched on eating better, stressing less, and connecting deeply. It turns out there's another pillar that is profoundly important to brain health: moving more.
Human beings were we were made to move. The kind of, anatomy that we have, this axial body musculoskeletal system is meant to move and to run and to essentially explore. But unfortunately, even though we have a Paleolithic body, we're living a life that is completely opposite for what we were designed for. And a lot of our ailments and the conditions that we're experiencing is because of our environment not really fitting our biology anymore. Our body was meant to move. When we move, magical things happen. We have more blood flow to our organs when we move. We have the release of specific types of chemicals, neurochemicals, growth hormones that build our muscle, but more importantly, it builds our brain. And it heightens our senses. It heightens our sense of hearing. It heightens our vision. It even heightens our taste. There's some research that shows that when people move, they can taste better. And they can feel better, as far as touch is concerned. And this sedentary lifestyle is essentially disconnecting us not only from ourselves, from each other, but from the environment as well. And you see the opposite of this impact when you see people who are in a regimented exercise program. And research studies have shown that when people engage with activities such as hiking or running or biking or just simply walking for 20 minutes a day, there are hormones such as the brain-derived neurotrophic factor that just skyrockets. It goes from baseline, skyrockets, and then it kind of plateaus and stays there. And what BDNF does is magical. You see, the brain cell can make as little as 2 or 3 connections with each other. That's how they communicate. Or it can make as many as 30,000 connections. And now we know that the Purkinje cells in our cerebellum can make as up to 50,000 connections. That's insane. I mean, I can't even picture 50,000 little lines between neurons, but that's how it is. And when you look at these arborizations, it typically looks like the roots of a huge tree under the ground, where it just kind of communicates with each and every other plant around it and with itself. And exercise does that. Exercise grows those connections. What does that mean? So yes, greater connection, but what does that mean? That means a better you. That means a more aware you. That means a more sharper you. That means we can think better. We can remember better. We can communicate better. We can come up with better ideas and solutions. And I know this sounds bombastic, but when we exercise, we become better human beings. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we want. We want better versions of ourselves, don't we? The numbers are incredible and they're so empowering. There are many different studies, but we, know from putting them together, and, there have been some meta-analyses, which is a type of exercise, which is a type of research that actually looks at the results of multiple different studies and compound them together. We know that when people engage in a combination of both aerobic and resistance training exercises, that they can lower the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by 40%. There was a time when nobody really talked about building muscle, but we now know that when you build muscles, especially your largest muscles, which are your legs, 60% of your body mass is below your belly button. If you build your legs, you literally grow the parts of the brain that are responsible for consolidation of memory, the hippocampus.
Regular physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients that help keep neurons healthy and strong. And the benefits go beyond biology. Exercise has been shown to reduce stress, boost sleep quality, and even improve mood.
We tend to kind of compartmentalize our brain along the lines of medical specialties. Most of us might not think that a psychiatrist, a neurologist, a personal trainer, a chef, and a meditation instructor would have a whole lot to do with each other. But their skill sets all have a profound impact on your cognitive and mental health.
Yes, and mental health is another hugely important piece of the puzzle. So let's take a look now at the connection between your brain and the way that you feel.
We'd like to compartmentalize all of the various types of maladies of the brain. We've talked about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's as neurodegenerative conditions, and certainly there are others. But the other big category is, of course, the mental health disorders, and mechanistically they actually share quite a bit. There's a lot going on in the mental health disorders that is very much parallels what's going on in the brain in the degenerative conditions. And I think fundamentally one of the players mechanistically that is seemingly so involved is something called inflammation. Inflammation is central to what goes on in the Parkinson's brain, in the Alzheimer's brain. It is the very immune cells that are the creators of these inflammatory chemicals that go on to damage the brain further, that compromise the energy production, that go on and compromise brain metabolism via inflammation, so powerfully threatening to the function of the energy producers within the cells called mitochondria. The same mechanism is at play, for example, in depression. So as it turns out, inflammation is a central mechanism involved in depression. Markers of inflammation in the blood correlate quite well with severity of depression, even risk for depression. We know that metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes and obesity correlate in a very straightforward way. What are those things involved in? Well, those are metabolic issues that threaten the function of immune cells and leads to the increased production of inflammatory chemicals in the body. We know that the SSRI drugs, for example, originally the Prozacs, Paxils, etc., that these drugs also function in addition to allowing perhaps more serotonin to be available in the brain, but actually these are anti-inflammatories. We know that sick behavior is seen in depression, but it's also seen when we have an infection and inflammation is increased in the human body. So, there are a lot of mechanisms, and I think as it relates to neurochemistry, one area that's getting a lot of attention is what does inflammation do in the brain to the neurotransmitters, which are clearly the central focus of pharmacological intervention as it relates to things, for example, like depression. And it turns out, not to be too technical, but probably I'm being too technical, too bad, and that is that inflammatory chemicals in the body inhibit the way that tryptophan, one of the amino acids, is processed to form the good chemical, if you will, serotonin, the chemical that calms us down and helps us feel good about things. The production of this serotonin from tryptophan is inhibited when there are higher levels of inflammatory chemicals that influence something called the kynurenic acid pathway. That'll be on the quiz. Suffice it to say that, let me back up, that inflammation threatens the availability of serotonin in the brain, and that may be one powerful mechanism whereby the metabolic issues like high blood sugar, diabetes, and overweight and obesity are related powerfully to risk for depression, for example.
Most people do not realize that your feel-good neurotransmitter, serotonin, is actually made, a significant portion, up to 90%, is made in the gut. So if the gut is producing this feel-good neurotransmitter, you want to keep the gut as healthy as possible with certain foods that are going to protect it.
Everything's connected in the body. And when you step back and you see the pervasive problem we have with mental health in our society, the amount of depression and what that leads to, everything from decreased productivity to hospitalization, suicides, etc. Where is it coming from? Well, a lot of it seems to be tied up with, again, the food that we're eating determines the microbes in our gut, and if the byproducts that the microbes are producing are ones that are deficient in dopamine and oxytocin and norepinephrine and serotonin, then that's going to affect the level of those chemicals in the brain. And so that fast food diet that people are eating are probably contributing to the depression we're seeing, including in children. And I've heard so many times over the years that my patients who I've helped transition their diet to one of whole plant foods for their medical reason, blood pressure, diabetes, whatever. As the months go on, by the way, doc, since I changed my diet, I feel better. I'm happier. The life looks better to me. And this is not a placebo effect. It's a very powerful demonstration of how connected we are and how the food affects the microbiome and the microbiome affects our brain functioning. So everything is connected. And again, those whole plant foods hold so much nourishment on every level for us, not just our body, but also our mental function and our happiness.
We keep learning more about the powerful links between food and mental health. One study called Let Us Be Happy found that eating more fruits and vegetables was linked to reduced depression and greater psychological well-being. It's not just mood though. Emerging research suggests that the foods we eat could even shape our personality traits.
This is fascinating. We often think of personality as something kind of fixed, whether you're introverted or extroverted, agreeable or not. But science is showing that personality can actually change, and diet can play a big role. The gut-brain axis, for example, connects the health of your digestive system to your mood and your behavior. As we'll explore more in episode 3, a healthy gut microbiome can improve emotional stability and lower anxiety. But unhealthy diets that are high in sugar and unhealthy fats can disrupt the microbiome and can contribute to irritability and to neuroticism.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Diet also influences neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to adapt and grow. Nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants like vitamin C and carotenoids found in colorful fruits and vegetables support adaptability and resilience. Poor diet, on the other hand, can increase blood sugar dysregulation and inflammation, which have been linked to traits like impulsivity and neuroticism. So, in a sense, the meals you choose aren't just feeding your body, they could be shaping who you are.
This is true, and for a lot of folks, it's also urgent. Unfortunately, mental health challenges are becoming increasingly common. Harvard Medical School researchers predict that half the world's population will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetimes.
One of the factors that could be driving a surge in mental health conditions in just about every country on Earth is the spread of ultra-processed foods.
Ultra-processed foods are basically industrialized, manufactured products with refined sugars, high refined sugars, unhealthy fats, additives, preservatives, and low nutritional value. Our body doesn't actually recognize what to do with them. So what I end up seeing happen is individuals who have been on these diets for a long time, their cells are speaking out to them and they're angry, whether that symptom is a mood disorder, whether that symptom is energy production. The cells are starving for nutrients.
Stay away. Right. Ultra-processed foods not good for the body, not good for the brain. Associated with probably every disease you could possibly think of, constituting about 60% of daily caloric intake in the United States, probably the highest ultra-processed food intake in the world in terms of percent of calories. And boy, are we feeling the effects. And so, yeah, in fact, one of the characteristics of ultra-processed foods are these food additives, which are safe until they're not. Right? But the problem is they're out in the food supply for decades, often like aspartame, before like, oh, maybe it causes cancer. Okay, well, you could have told us this in 1981 when it was approved, And so I think a kind of guilty until proven innocent when it comes to food additives, like some of these emulsifiers like polysorbate 80, they're used to emulsify food, can emulsify our gut mucus and cause problems with our microbiome. Artificial sweeteners, like sucralose, can muck with our microbiome. The sucralose industry likes to say, oh, we're so safe because we're not absorbed into the bloodstream. Yeah, well, what does that mean? It ends up in the colon and can muck with our good gut bugs and cause metabolic problems. And so it's like, but we don't find these things out until later. And so in general, we should, try to stick with whole foods if we possibly can.
So when we're looking at ultra processed foods, we're looking at the increased risk of inflammation because these foods are known to cause inflammation in the body. And inflammation is a key factor in contributing to mental health disorders, including depression. Ultra processed foods also affect the gut microbiome, creating something that we know as gut dysbiosis. So gut dysbiosis is an imbalance between your good gut bacteria and your bad gut bacteria. So when you create gut dysbiosis, the gut can influence every single cell in your body to create disease. So whether that is creating metabolic diseases like cancer and obesity, to cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, to cognitive issues like anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, to autoimmune issues. Basically, the gut microbiome is your key in healing from any of these diseases. There are very little nutrients in ultra-processed foods. So we are going to have those nutrient deficiencies of those omega-3s, those B vitamins, those antioxidants, vitamin D. All of these things are key for brain health.
Most of us know, at least in general, that ultra-processed foods don't serve our best health, but few of us realize the extent of the damage they can do.
Part of the trouble with ultra-processed foods is that, to put it really simply, when you fill up on refined stuff, you have less room for nourishing stuff. Let's take a deeper look at how this works and at what dietary patterns are worst and best for your brain.
We know that when people adhere to, if I had to kind of draw a picture of it, it would be a predominantly standard American or a standard Western diet, which is usually very high in processed foods, in refined carbohydrates or sugars, in unhealthy fats such as trans fatty acids or saturated fats, in salt, and it's low in fiber, low in polyphenols, low in anti-inflammatories and antioxidants. Those are the kind of dietary patterns that really harm our brain. So I would say anything that kind of deviates from the Mind diet or the Mediterranean diet or a whole food plant-based or a plant-predominant diet seems to cause a lot of problems for the brain. How? Multiple different ways. We've identified 4 different pathways primarily. So it is essentially glucose dysregulation, which essentially means that the metabolism of carbohydrates in our body is affected significantly by an unhealthy dietary pattern. Lipid dysregulation, which essentially means that consuming too much saturated fats or trans fatty acids can harm our blood vessels and can harm the production of specific chemicals that are really necessary for better brain function. Inflammation. I mean, that's something that is caused by unhealthy dietary patterns, and oxidation. Oxidation is caused mostly because of the lack of anti-inflammatory and antioxidants in our diet, and also consumption of poor fat or low quality foods that are oxidized and cause damage to the arteries and to the neurons in our brain. I threw out a lot of super scientific terminologies there, but generally speaking, if somebody really wants to take care of their brain health, then consumption of foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes as a source of fiber and plant-based proteins, nuts and seeds, which are high in healthy fats, consumption of water, and minimizing sugar, salt, and saturated fatty acids is at the core of a healthy dietary pattern. If you come down to the details of the different types of food that are healthy for the brain, even though I don't believe in superfoods per se, but there are foods that just stand out. And even in specific factor analyses of studies, which kind of shows, what foods are on the higher end of anti-inflammatories and antioxidants and provide the right kind of energy and the right kind of calories. Things like, green leafy vegetables just stand out. There was one study that showed that when people consume only 1 serving of green leafy vegetables, which is about 1.2 cups per day, when they did neuropsychological testing and imaging on them, they had brains that functioned at a level of 11 years younger. So people who consumed greens on a daily basis had brains of someone equivalent of 11 years younger. And their neuropsychological testing scores were incredibly high as well. That's phenomenal. And that's one of the things that we use in our communities for people who are just beginning to try to eat healthy. Instead of changing everything, we say, instead of removing everything, why don't you just add a cup of greens to your salad or your soup or your sandwich? And then other foods like blueberries stand out. They're packed with polyphenols and compounds that fight against inflammation and oxidation. Then we have foods that are high in fiber, such as whole grains and, unrefined cereals like oatmeal, like barley, like whole wheat, bread. Those are amazing sources of complex carbohydrates and energy, as well as fiber. The one thing that we're all deficient in is fiber. And then the rest of it is essentially consumption of, foods that are high in protein but low in saturated fats. So neglecting red meat, which comes with a lot of saturated fats, and getting your protein from beans, from soy products such as tofu and tempeh, and healthy fats such as, seeds and nuts that are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids and low in saturated fatty acids. So a combination of these foods essentially are up there on the top for brain health.
So our brains seem to do best when we eat less ultra-processed foods, less saturated fat, and more whole plant foods, especially legumes, greens, and fiber. What are some of the other key, most powerful nutritional factors?
There are a number of key factors I want you to think of, ingredients or compounds to help with brain health. Number one would be antioxidants. Key factors there are things like vitamin E, vitamin C, and polyphenols, which when I'm testing individuals on their blood levels for these, they are quite deficient in them based off of what their diet is. So vitamin E can be found in nuts and seeds, for example, almonds and sunflower seeds. Avocados and spinach are a great source of vitamin E. Vitamin C is really found in a lot of citrus fruits, so strawberries, bell peppers, and also leafy greens. And then polyphenols, this is where we want to eat the color of the rainbow. Berries, blueberries, blackberries, every color has some certain ingredient in it that can have this antioxidant effect. So that's number one. Antioxidants is key. Number two would be B vitamins. So B vitamins are critical for energy production for the brain. They are critical for supporting homocysteine. High homocysteine levels are linked to cognitive decline, and they're important in the synthesis of B6 and B12. So we want to make sure we're getting enough B6, B12, and folate. B6 found in bananas, potatoes, chickpeas. B9, which is also known as folate, is your dark leafy greens, lentils. And then B12, from a plant-based diet, the best way to get it is really supplementation or in fortified foods with B12. So now we've got antioxidants key, B vitamins key, and all of this I test for.
From the different studies, we know that vitamins such as the B vitamins, the B complex vitamins, are incredibly important for a healthy brain and a healthy nervous system. Even though we live in the United States, which is a developed country, a large number of our populations are low in vitamin B12 and vitamin B6 and vitamin B1. These vitamins are not adequately consumed as food products, or we may actually have some other gut issues that may minimize or limit their absorption. So we're seeing that trend with hyperpalatable, hyper-processed foods not providing enough of these vitamins. So it's important for people to get tested at least once a year to find out their values and their levels and replace that with supplements if necessary.
Next is magnesium. Magnesium is critical because that is going to support nerve function. Magnesium helps reduce stress. Magnesium improves sleep quality and therefore is essential for cognitive function. It also plays a role in the axons, the nerve cells communicating with each other. So plant-based sources, easy to get. That would be your almonds, your cashews, pumpkin seeds, black beans, and dark leafy greens. And two more that I'm going to give you. One would be vitamin D. And vitamin D is actually a hormone. And it's a hormone that contributes to lowering inflammation in the body. Having adequate vitamin D levels, which you can get from mushrooms that have been exposed to sunlight, fortified plant milks, sunlight exposure, or vitamin D supplementation.
Vitamin D seems to be very important for brain health, even in southern sunny California. We have about 30 to 40% of our population who are vitamin D deficient. And that impacts our cognition and memory and focus and attention. And so if somebody needs it, you need to replace that.
The last one I want you to consider is omega-3s. So omega-3s are critical, especially the DHA component. This helps maintain the structure and function of the brain cell and the cell membrane, that outer lining. So plant-based sources that you can utilize for omega-3 fatty acids, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnut, and algae oil are some of my favorites.
I was just having a conversation with a friend who is an expert in the field of understanding the impact of omega-3 fatty acids on our brain health. And that is one specific food, or should I say an aspect of a food or a micronutrient that seems to be quite important. 57 to 60% of our brain is made of these omega-3 fatty acids, both a combination of EPA and DHA, mostly DHA, but EPA as well. And it is a type of fat that our brain cannot create on its own. The brain can create its own cholesterol. It doesn't need any saturated fats, but it needs omega-3 fatty acids on a regular basis. And so it is very important for us to consume enough of it. Omega-3 fatty acids plays an important role on mental health. There have been studies that show that when people are experiencing conditions like PTSD, for example, or after traumatic brain injury when they have some cognitive impairment, and even in ADHD, that's consumption of omega-3 fatty acids, either as food or as supplements, may ameliorate some of the symptoms.
Plant-based foods like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and hemp seeds are excellent sources of short-chain omega-3 fatty acids called alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Grinding up flax or chia seeds, perhaps in a coffee grinder, and sprinkling a tablespoon per day on top of your food can truly be a wonderful habit. It gives you not just ALA, but also protein, fiber, and phytochemicals, all of which are terrific. But there's still one potential gap, which is that your body has to convert ALA into DHA and EPA, which are the long chain forms of omega-3 fatty acids that are the most beneficial for brain health. This is where it can get a little tricky. A very small percentage of people convert ALA to DHA and EPA efficiently.
That's why it can be helpful to get your blood levels checked. Most people tend to have levels that are lower than optimal, and to be on the safe side, you really may want to take an algae-based DHA and EPA supplement, especially if you don't eat fish. Some people get EPA and DHA from fish, but fish are increasingly contaminated with heavy metals and microplastics, and the sheer volume of demand for fish is turning the fishing industry into something of an environmental disaster. So more and more people are getting their direct EPA and DHA from the same place the fish get it, which is algae. If you're interested in more on this topic, we'll come back to it in episode 4 when we discuss cardiovascular health, and in episode 7 when we talk about the science of nutrition.
Now let's turn our attention to another critical pillar of brain health that doesn't get nearly enough attention, and that's sleep. So what's really happening while we sleep, and why does it matter so much for our brains?
I think sleep is hugely underrated and critically important. We were talking about food. You can go a week without eating food, and so that's a nice fast, but you're not going to go a week without sleeping. You will probably perish. It's just behind breathing in terms of its importance, and yet so underestimated. We don't spend a third of our lives exercising or eating, but we should spend about a third of our lives, 8 out of every 24 hours, involved in this activity because it is so fundamental for general health and critically important for brain health. You miss a night's sleep and immediately you amp up the production of inflammatory chemicals within the human brain. Your decision-making is profoundly compromised, so it really is central to a brain health program.
When we look at the impact of sleep on the brain, it's profound. So 2 very important things happen when we sleep. The first thing that happens is our brain consolidates memory. We gather all of this information from our environment, whether it's a conversation with a friend or watching the news or reading an article. All of that stays on a plate. It's on a dish, like imagine a big dish with small little sticky notes with scribbles on them just there. It's like that at the end of the day. All of this information is your working memory, and it gets transferred and converted into long-term memory during the deeper stages of sleep. So it's as if somebody just opened up all those little sticky notes for you, typed it down into a beautiful Word document, saved it with a nice title, put it in the right folder and cabinet so that you can find it the next day. But if you don't get enough sleep, all of that just withers away and it goes away. So consolidation memory happens during the deeper stages of sleep. The second thing that happens is our brain cleanses itself. We have a beautiful, elegant janitorial system that is made from the microglia, which are specific cells. We call them the janitor cells, but there's so much more. And then the glymphatic system, which is an elegant system of lymph fluid that moves and reverberates based on the movements of our veins. So every time our heart pumps, these arteries in our brains, they reverberate and they push these lymph, almost like a sweep, to clean up all the byproducts from our brain. And they gather them, throw them in the veins, and it gets out of your body. However, this system does not get activated unless you're in the N3, the deeper stages of sleep, which basically means that for those of us who stay up late to watch that Netflix documentary, or who have a little bit of caffeine in our system, or who think that they can get away with only 4 hours of sleep, we don't go through those stages of sleep. And guess what happens? Accumulation of these byproducts occur, including beta amyloid protein that increases the risk for Alzheimer's disease and other disorders as well. So sleep is so important for brain health. And as far as sleep is concerned, one study showed that when people have untreated sleep apnea, which is a condition where you wake up multiple times, up to 100 times a day, even without opening your eyes, you wake up and you're not allowed to go to the deeper stages of sleep, that your risk of Alzheimer's disease can increase by 70%. And treating it completely reverses that relationship. And there are multiple other studies that show that when we say, for example, drink caffeine at night, that keeps us up and doesn't allow us to go through the stages of sleep where the brain is cleansed, that you start accumulating beta amyloid protein, which is the bad protein associated with Alzheimer's disease.
So sleep is really important. But a lot of us struggle to get enough of it. Sometimes that's because we're busy and we just don't spend enough time in a horizontal position. But a lot of us also have time that we're just lying there in bed, frustrated and awake. What causes these kinds of sleep issues? What makes our bodies lose the ability to do what they and our brains need them to do?
A lot of people do have difficulties with sleep. And, as they're not falling asleep, what happens? Well, they worry about that. Oh my gosh, I'm not sleeping. And what does that do? It alerts them and activates them, and they have even more difficulty falling asleep. So there's so many things that we could talk about, but I think, these days, the big players seem to be, number one, timing of caffeine. I love my morning caffeine, but I think timing is really critical. I think the notion of a caffeine curfew is really a good idea. Caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. And that means it takes 6 hours for the caffeine level in your bloodstream to go down by 50%. So if you have a couple of espressos at, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 hours later, 10 o'clock at night, you still have a full 1 espresso on board in your bloodstream. And various factors affect people differently. Again, that's where the personalized approach comes into play. But again, people should look at what they're doing in the evening, what they're watching, what they're participating in, when they're exercising, when did they have caffeine last, recognize that there are it's an incredibly wide variety of things that have hidden sources of caffeine that you didn't know about. One that I should have known, but I didn't think about was kombucha. Kombucha is made from tea and can have caffeine in it. Who knew? Actually has a little bit of alcohol in it as well. Chocolate, that's for sure, can have a little caffeine in it as well. Even various medications that people may take may have a little caffeine in them as well. And people can be very sensitive. Evening activities are really very important. You know, especially these days, watching news just before you go to sleep at night is probably not going to pave the way for you to unwind and forget about what's going on in the world and go to sleep very easily. So, you know, just another thing people need to think about. I think people should pay attention to the environment. It should be a little colder than perhaps you're used to, dark and quiet. And when I say quiet, it means that not only noise from the outside, but if you're sleeping with somebody, that individual may snore or may talk in his or her sleep or may move around and kick you in the middle of the night. Who knows? But one thing that is very handy is a white noise generator, which actually is found on many smartphones these days. I didn't know it was on the iPhone, but it is. But you can get a USB rechargeable smart white noise generator that's actually very handy. And truth be known, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I hear the white noise generator and I learned that, yes, I was snoring and my wife turned it on. That allowed her to get a good night's sleep. So I'm all in.
So there's a laundry list of sleep hygiene checklist that essentially addresses three main factors. Your environment, which is your bed, your bedroom, your curtains, your pillow, your blanket, the temperature. And then it's your lifestyle factors, such as your food and exercise. And then your behavior. Behavior essentially meaning not associating bedtime with stress, because for a lot of us, the minute we head to our bedroom and the minute we put our head on our pillow, that's when we start thinking about all these things that have happened and we can't really shut down our brain. So, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy for that, or not drinking caffeine in the afternoon, or making sure your room is dark and boring and it's not a theater with a TV in it, that it's really, really cool, you know, sometimes below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, although men and women tend to differ on that subject. All of that is incredibly important. But we were having a conversation with a sleep specialist friend a couple of weeks ago, and he said, if people do one thing for their sleep, that actually helps a lot. And we said, what is that? And he said, waking up at the same time every single day. His theory was your body is going to get tired anyway, and you'll have to listen to it. Forcing yourself to go to sleep might be more difficult than waking up, because that's the beginning of the day and you look forward to something. If you wake up at the same time, what happens is you will get tired and you will fall asleep within that time. So don't worry about too many factors. If people need to do one thing, it's choose one time, wake up, and that's basically it. And then everything else will fall in its place. Beyond that, I think there's a lot of wonderful research that is going on to look at our circadian rhythm and the timing of our consumption of food. And that seems to be very, very intriguing. Essentially, our metabolism changes when we consume food not at the right time. So more than the type of food that we should consume to promote a healthy sleeping pattern, it's not eating after a certain time and kind of staying hungry. And so the rule is, generally speaking, to stop thinking about food or eating any snacks or food at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, to give your body some time to rest. Because even if you are, if your stomach is not grumbling after eating, the metabolism changes. The rev up of energy, the glucose metabolism, the fat metabolism can impact your sleep cycles. So trying to stay away from eating completely is important. And also, of course, minimizing alcohol. As much as people think that alcohol might induce sleep, that actually does the complete opposite. It might help people go to sleep, but it completely ruins the sleep cycle, where it doesn't allow us to go through the deeper stages of sleep where our memories are consolidated and the brain is cleansed.
Optimizing sleep is critical for brain health, and there are a lot of things that can help, including making sure that late in the day you're avoiding caffeine and excessive stress, food, and blue light. It also helps to have a safe, quiet, dark sleep environment and to maintain a regular sleep schedule. But are there any foods or nutrients that support good sleep, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Ocean, because there are. Foods like nuts, seeds, cherries, and whole grains are rich in dietary fiber, magnesium, and tryptophan, all of which may help elicit deep relaxation and better sleep. Some of these foods, like pistachios, cherries, and sunflower seeds, are also rich in melatonin, the hormone that helps to regulate sleep.
Taking supplemental melatonin at bedtime could be helpful too. A lot of people think that melatonin is habit forming, meaning if you take it regularly, your body will make less and less of it, and that this could ultimately make it bad for your health. But the research does not appear to back that up. In general, taking a small to medium dose of melatonin right at bedtime in concert with a consistent bedtime routine seems to lead for a lot of people to a deeper and more satisfying sleep experience. But of course, it's not right or helpful for everybody, and the best sleep strategy doesn't come from a pill, it comes from optimizing your lifestyle choices.
So how can you nurture healthy diet and lifestyle choices? It all starts with building healthy habits.
It takes a very long time for a habit to be built. It doesn't happen overnight. By definition, habit is something that we continuously do over and over and over again. And we start defining ourselves based on those actions. And just the way they are built, they are also amenable to change. They can be broken down too, and they can be replaced with better habits. This in itself is a huge conversation and a topic, but progress and changing one small thing at a time instead of taking on too many different things seems to be the best way to go about it. And there are specific keystone habits. One thing that comes easy, one thing that can be made personal, that could be the stepping stone to changing habits and patterns in other realms as well. So I would suggest identifying one thing at a time, working at it, making the smallest of changes and building on that as we move forward.
So here we are, full circle, seeing how the small habits we nurture every day can have a profound impact, not just on how we feel in the moment, but on the long-term health of our brains and our bodies. What's striking is how interconnected it all is. Our movement, our meals, our rest, even our connections with other people in our lives. Each of these choices has the power to shape our future. And the best part, I think, is that we hold the reins.
And isn't it empowering to know that brain health isn't something that inevitably declines with age? Instead, it's something we can influence and even improve. It's about making those consistent, intentional choices, whether it's adding more leafy greens to your plate, getting outside for a brisk walk, or simply prioritizing time to unwind. Prevention might not make headlines as often as the latest pharmaceutical breakthrough, but it is where the real magic happens.
Think about it like this. Every small choice you make today is a vote for the person you want to be tomorrow. And while the science can seem complicated, the message is remarkably simple. Taking agency means asking the right questions, not just what can fix this, but what can I do right now to love and care for my body and my brain?
So what does agency look like for you? Maybe it's committing to one keystone habit, something small but meaningful that you can build on. It could be as simple as starting each day with just 5 minutes of movement, or ensuring your next meal includes a vibrant, nutrient-dense vegetable. Each of these actions adds up to a stronger, healthier you.
And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. So don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Every step you take and every bite you take matters.
I think it's pretty clear from the evidence we have that if you take care of your brain, it'll take care of you. And I think people don't realize how much exercise and eating right and stress management and sleep and social connection can really protect your brain from what we normally think of as kind of normal brain aging. And certainly people who reach advanced ages that don't have any real memory or other cognitive impairment. And part of it may be genetic, but I think a lot of it is also lifestyle and how they treat their brain over the course of their life, with how they feed it, how they maintain the blood flow with exercise and other things. And I think that it's entirely possible that one day we will put everything together and memory impairment won't be a normal part of aging.
We now know that the brain is probably the only organ that gets better as we age. And there is a lot of evidence that shows that when you expose yourself to the right kind of lifestyle factors, whether it's diet, exercise, restorative sleep, optimization of cognitive activities, our brain cells are able to make more and more connections, whether we're 9-year-old or 99 years old. It just depends on how we take care of ourselves. Sure, there are some aspects of our cognition that may slow down a little bit. For example, it takes a little bit of time for us to remember, but the depth of our wisdom, the amount of our information, and the way the different parts of the brain interact with each other and come up with beautiful ideas, that continues to get better and better and better. And so dementia is not an imminent factor. It's just something that occurs as a result of us not highlighting or realizing the impact of our lifestyle factors on our brain.
What I scream from the rooftop is to take agency, is to be involved and make the choices preemptively to stay healthy. That this is something we can all do. And the notion of prevention as it relates to our health is something that is unfortunately not spoken about too much in the media. We hear about drugs being released day in and day out. Ask your doctor about this drug or that drug. No. Find out about why I have the problem in the first place. The chronic degenerative conditions that are plaguing the world, ranked as #1 cause of death by the World Health Organization, are by and large metabolic issues, and our lifestyle choices are fundamental to regain the function of our metabolism and therefore our immune systems.
It's true. Our lifestyle choices shape our brains, our metabolism, and our destiny.
We created this docuseries and this summit to put the power back in your hands. And we have so much more to learn together. Please be sure to join us for episode 3. Our topic will be a very important one: how you can improve your gut health and nurture a healthy life.
We'll see you there.
Let's do this. Thank you so much for sharing in that powerful episode. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to see what other folks are saying, post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page. You can refresh the comments with the button provided there to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Candy said, I'm a nurse practitioner and this information is powerfully applicable and gives me hope that I can make changes. Wonderful, Candy. And thank you for being a nurse practitioner and caring for the well-being of others. And hopefully what you learn here will help you and it will also help them. Angie said, I was listening to the replay of day 1 and it just stopped. I thought the replay was available for another day. What happened? So Angie, the way it works is that every day of the summit, we broadcast live and then we have a replay that starts when the broadcast finishes. We leave the replay up until the following morning in the US time zones when we flip the page to be ready for the next day's broadcast. The page flip typically happens around 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And so that's the time when the replays end. And then we get ready to start the next day. So that's basically the schedule. So you got about 20 hours, 21 hours of replay time after we wrap. Of course, if you get the empowerment package, then you own it all for life. So those are kind of the options. Thanks for being a part of this with us. Cheryl said, such breakthrough science from Dr. Ornish. Very grateful for the FRN Summit every year so we can hear about the science behind the powerful efficacy of a whole food plant-based diet. Each of these presenters are excellent. Thank you, Ocean and Nicole. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here with us. And yes, breakthrough research indeed. The Ornish program has been found to be helpful to not only prevent but also reverse cardiovascular disease, to help people heal from prostate cancer. And now we're seeing its efficacy with mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's. And indeed, this is a breakthrough. Lori said, I'm enjoying this summit and learning so much. I just purchased full access so I can dig in deeper and continue to learn and improve my life. Thank you. Awesome, Lori. Thank you so much for supporting our work. You know, we couldn't do all this without you and all the other empowerment package owners investing in your health and in our mission so we can carry this forward and spread the free summit far and wide. We're so grateful you're here. Sandra said, good morning, Ocean and Nicole. Don't forget to drink your water. I'd love to see those glasses get lower in volume. Sandra, thank you for your concern and your care. So you may notice glasses of water in all of our interviews. That's prop water. We also typically have water in larger volume that we may be drinking that's for drinking. So it's kind of a prop situation, but fascinating of you to notice that. Thank you so much for your concern and care. And yes, my name is Ocean. I'm a big fan of water. Matthew said, I had crippling migraines for 20 years. I was at last year's Food Revolution Summit. I've been whole food plant-based for nearly 2 years. I've now been migraine-free for nearly 2 years. Oh, by the way, I accidentally lost 80 pounds, cured my arthritis, and cured my chronic constipation also. Matthew, what great news. Congratulations on getting out of the terrible pain of migraines and also losing 80 pounds that it sounds like you needed to lose, and curing your arthritis and chronic constipation. What wonderful news. And this really highlights such an important point, folks, which is that a healthy diet and lifestyle, you know, giving your body the right fuel kind of helps everything get better, not just one thing. And that's the beauty of it. Braca said, do not miss day one. Worth getting the empowerment package for day one alone. Oh, thank you so much, Braca. Yes, day one was amazing. And I think day two, you'll probably agree, was pretty amazing as well. And just wait till you see day 3 tomorrow. It just keeps getting better, folks. Richard said, looking forward to this session. My question is, how do I eat everything that's good for my health and not eat 6,000 calories a day? Richard, thanks for asking. So when you start diving into all the amazing plant foods out there, the leafy greens and the cruciferous veggies and the berries and the nuts and the legumes and the seeds and the whole grains, mushrooms, it can feel like the list of good for you foods just keeps on growing. In fact, there are over 10,000 edible plant foods in the world, probably more. And it can be kind of overwhelming to figure out how to eat it all without ending up at 6,000 calories a day. But the good news is you don't have to eat everything to eat well. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. And it's also about diversity. So a few tips to help you strike the right balance. One is think about variety over volume. You don't have to eat every single superfood every day. Focus on variety across the week and rotate your greens, swap in different legumes, change up your fruits for some variety if you like. But remember, nutrient density is key, and whole plant foods are generally lower in calories and higher in fiber as well as in water. So they're more filling and less calorie dense than processed foods or animal products. Now, some foods like nuts or seeds or avocados or dried fruits can give you good nutritional punch, but also come with a lot of calories. So if you're worried about excess calories, enjoy them in portions that feel right for your needs and your goals. Of course, listen to your body. Sometimes we get excited about the shoulds of healthy eating and we forget to tune in. Just because something is healthy in studies doesn't mean you should pile it on when you're already full. So listen to your body's fullness and its signals and the energy cues that it gives you. And at the end of the day, remember, it's not about checking off a list of every single healthy food possible. It's about creating a lifestyle that celebrates the diversity and deliciousness of whole plant foods and enjoying them in delicious ways. So thanks for a great question. And here's to you feeling amazing and not needing an industrial-sized refrigerator to store it all. Frankie said, hello, was wondering if GERD or acid reflux was going to be addressed in this summit. Some of my favorite foods on a plant-based diet cause heartburn, such as garlic, onions, tomatoes, and vinegar. It's hard to make tasty foods. Thanks in advance. Well, Frankie, thank you for asking. We're not going to have like a big episode on GERD or acid reflux, but let me say a few things now. First of all, you're not alone. These conditions affect millions of people, and for a lot of people, it can feel especially frustrating when foods that are typically celebrated on a plant-based diet, like garlic or onions or tomatoes or vinegar, can seem to trigger discomfort. Now, your experience is valid, and everybody is unique. So, first of all, the thing to remember is listen to your own body and see how you respond to different foods. And if you find painful symptoms or problematic symptoms from certain foods, maybe you want to take a break from them for a while and then bring them back slowly in moderation a little later when your symptoms have died down and see how things are going. But here are a few things that you may want to consider. So one is try adjusting how you prepare foods. Some folks find they can tolerate cooked onions or garlic more easily than raw. The same goes for tomatoes. Low acid varieties or using them in small cooked portions may work better for you. And it's okay to reduce or avoid problematic foods. There's no one food that makes or breaks a healthy lifestyle. If certain ingredients just don't sit well with you, even when they're prepared gently or in moderation, it's okay to reduce them or cut them out altogether. What matters most is finding a version of a healthy diet that supports your body and helps you feel good. And you may want to explore some alternative seasonings. You can create delicious, flavorful meals without vinegar or garlic or onions. Here are a few ideas. You could play with ginger or cumin or coriander or turmeric, which tend to be anti-inflammatory and add flavor. Fresh herbs like basil or parsley or dill. You could try lemon juice. It sounds like you may have challenges with acidic foods, but that's something you could consider instead of vinegar. Coconut aminos are a soy salt alternative that's a bit gentler and less acid forming. And then smoked paprika or nutritional yeast deliver some rich umami flavors. Now remember, you know your body best, so honor what works for you. Keep listening and keep learning. Hopefully some of these tips will be helpful to you. Judy asked, is there an excellent air purifier you can recommend? And of course, we heard today about the importance of healthy air, the problems that can come from smoke, wildfire smoke, but also there's a lot of pathogens in the air we breathe indoors, in our cars and in our homes. So you want to try to be as non-toxic as possible, to not have a lot of toxic off-gassing of plastics, and go for natural materials when you can, and vacuum, of course, and sweep. But an air filter can make a huge difference to indoor air quality. It can reduce the spread of pathogens and respiratory viruses. It can address pet dander and bring down allergens in the air. And of course, it can reduce all sorts of different contaminants, including volatile organic compounds and other problematic things. So we at Food Revolution Network have looked into this extensively, and there's a particular air filter that we do feel really, really good about. It's called the Air Doctor. And Judy, since you asked, we want to give you one. So our team will follow up with you. Congratulations. You will now be the owner of an Air Doctor Pro 3500. They make several different models. And the Air Doctor is, for the price, you get an incredible quality filter. It's fairly economical. In fact, they give a $300 discount to Food Revolution Network members because they want to support our mission as well. So if anybody else is interested, go to foodrevolution.org/airdoctor. That's foodrevolution.org/airdoctor, and you can get that discount. And bonus, they'll also make a contribution in support of our work if you make a purchase from that link. But for you, Judy, you can look up the link if you want, but our team will be getting you a free one. Congratulations again. Ellen said, I realize this is a mostly vegetarian group. Vegetarian or vegan diets do not work well for all of us. I understand the moral and ethical issues around animal consumption. Some of us some of eat meat, poultry, fish, eggs, etc. that's either wild harvested or raised, pastured or grass-fed, etc. We are all in agreement on factory farming, CAFOs, etc. I work hard to get my produce and meat and eggs from local farms where silvopasturing and other organic regenerative practices are happening, and it's within a short drive. Can you talk about the health benefits of eating this way versus factory farmed meat eating? Also, FYI, much soy, corn, wheat, unless organic, is GMO, grown with an extensive amount of Roundup during the process as well as post-harvest. Plus, these foods might travel very far to get to the factory where processed grain products are made, then far again to the table. My meat and eggs come from 1 to 2 hours away, hundreds of miles versus 5,000 to 8,000 of traveling in a carbon footprint. Well, Ellen, thank you so much for raising this. And we are all on the same team here. We're all challenging the industrialized food system and standing for more healthy, natural, and sustainable food. And of course, each of us has to make the best choices we can for our own health and that align with our own values. And it sounds like you are very much trying to practice this, and I honor you and celebrate you in that. Now, to address your question specifically, there are huge benefits to moving away from factory farms, including ethical ones and environmental ones. And if you're going to eat meat and eggs and dairy or any of those things, it sounds like you're doing it in the most conscious and healthy way that you can. To the health side, there is some evidence that grass-fed or pasture-raised meat and eggs have health advantages. They have lower levels of saturated fat, and because the animals move around, so they're lower fat in general. Certainly less exposure to hormones and antibiotics and pesticides, and less likely to be contaminated with antibiotic-resistant bacteria. That said, to be honest, we don't actually have great studies showing health benefits from eating grass-fed versus factory farm meat. It stands to reason there could be some benefits to making that shift, but we don't know about any huge ones, and we know about huge benefits found in eating more whole plant foods. So I'm going to continue to advocate for that. Now, in terms of the environmental impact of animal products, it's massive. We're going to look at this a lot more in depth in episode 8, but what I want to add right now is that while food transportation has real environmental effect, it's dwarfed by the impact of the actual food that we're consuming. Anytime you move up the food chain, you have enormous inefficiency. Feeding cows grass takes a lot of land. Feeding them grain or soy maybe takes even more land. Globally, a lot of that land was once forest, and it could be forest again. Environmental researcher George Monbiot tells us you'd have a lower environmental footprint eating legumes that have circled the globe 100 times than beef from next door. So those are a few facts to ponder. And again, we're going to cover this a lot more deeply in episode 8. But the bottom line is yes to you listening to your body and supporting local farmers and foods and moving away from factory farms. And thanks for eating plants and being a part of the food revolution with us. Holly said special kudos to Nicole, who's doing a fantastic job as her first-time co-host for the summit. Please pass this along to her. Will do, Holly, and thank you so much for being a part of this. And yes, Nicole is amazing. Allison said, what is the association with frailty and Alzheimer's risk? Is an older person who eats a healthy plant-based diet but doesn't eat enough calories to maintain a healthy body mass at greater risk for cognitive and physical ailments? Allison, that is a great question, and the answer is yes. Research shows us clearly that there is increased risk of Alzheimer's disease from people who are dealing with frailty and are underweight. So you want to be getting enough protein and enough calories overall. And what we find is that often as people get older, their caloric consumption goes down. Maybe they're getting a little bit less active, and that can be an issue. So it is important, especially as you age, to make sure you're getting enough total calories so that you're not losing critical body weight. Most people in our society are struggling with excess weight, but some people have too little, and you want to get the right amount. So this is a key thing, and it's a factor in Alzheimer's risk. And so thanks for asking and taking care of your body. Eat enough wholesome, healthy foods, and that will help you be vibrant and thrive long term. It's not just about eating clean, but staying nourished and resilient. So great questions. And by the way, you also want to get a good amount of movement so you build strength, because you want to build muscle and maintain muscle, and that's critical. And eating calorie-dense whole foods like avocados and nuts and seeds and legumes and whole grains can be helpful as well. I want to make sure you all know that we have expert interviews here during this summit. So you're seeing right now my wrap-up comments after our day's broadcast, but we also have expert interviews. There were 45 incredible, brilliant interviews that went into this summit, and every day during the summit we share 3 of them on the broadcast page. Today's featured expert interviews are with Dr. Aisha Sherzai on the Alzheimer's solution, how to prevent and reverse the symptoms of cognitive decline at any age. We also have an interview with Dr. Dean Ornish on a unifying theory of lifestyle medicine, and one with Dr. David Perlmutter on Brainmaker, the power of gut microbes to heal and protect your brain for life. So you'll be able to watch those anytime for the next day almost until we flip this broadcast page for tomorrow's broadcast to begin. Enjoy. And of course, if you get the empowerment package, you have lifetime access to all the expert interviews. It can be a lot to absorb. It's kind of a feast. Jen said, I'm a cancer survivor and I want to change my dietary habits for good to prevent reoccurrence and increase my quality of life. Thank you for all this valuable information. Jen, thank you for being here, and congratulations on being a cancer survivor. We want to help you prevent recurrence as well. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. You'll own all the recordings and transcripts for life, including all the expert interviews. You'll also have more than $1,500 worth of bonuses, and I know you will put it to good use. Please keep us posted on how your health develops from here. We're sending you lots of love in your healing and wellness journey. Our team will be in touch with you. Congratulations to Jen, and also to all of our other new empowerment package owners, including Lizette from Maryland, Colleen from Ohio, Cheryl from Nebraska, Regino from Texas, Lori from Missouri, Margot from New Jersey, Todd from Virginia, Daniela from Switzerland, Iani from Netherlands, Brett from North Carolina, and Anella from Kentucky. Thank you all so much for investing in your health and supporting our mission with your purchase. And thanks to everybody else who's choosing to step up and get informed and get empowered with the empowerment package. Derek said, since first attending the FRN Summit in 2021, I'm down about 30 pounds. My wife noted that my snoring is virtually eliminated. Awesome, Derek. That is so good to hear. We hear this often, by the way. We've talked a lot in today's episode about the importance of sleep, and it is a really big deal. And it turns out that one of the major problems with sleep for us and for our partners, if we sleep with a partner, it can be snoring. So eating a healthy diet that's anti-inflammatory can really decrease that. Dairy is one of the factors here, by the way. It seems that dairy products can often have a congestive effect on the sinuses, and that can be helpful. Also, weight loss can contribute to reduction in snoring issues. So congratulations, Derek, to you and to your wife, and all the best wishes to you on your continued health journey. Cynthia said, I'm in the plant-based coaching program with FRN, and it's the most amazing thing that I've ever had the privilege of being a part of. I joined it to help others, and it is helping me personally beyond measure. It's not only life-changing, but also potentially life-saving. And I couldn't recommend it more to those of you who really want to up your game and align your values with your actions and purpose in this world, so you are walking your talk and making a true positive impact and difference in your time on this glorious planet. Thank you, Ocean and Tracy, and all of your outstanding faculty and team for this opportunity to change lives, support health and wellness, protect the planet, and value and respect animals. Wow, Cynthia, thank you for that. I'm so grateful that you're in the program with us and that you're going to be a part of this movement for a long time to come, so that all that you're learning can benefit your health and also all the people you will inspire and touch. We are so grateful. And for those who don't know, FRN hosts a plant-based coaching certificate program. We train hundreds of new coaches every year to help people implement and sustain and optimize healthy diet and lifestyle patterns. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to certification.foodrevolution.org. One of our graduates is Dr. Heather Gosnell from Phoenix, Arizona. And starting in 2017, Dr. Gosnell learned about the power of diet and lifestyle, and she started implementing what she was learning. As a practicing pediatrician, Dr. Heather joined their certificate program so she could bring lifestyle into her practice and help people address the root cause of health issues. So now we're going to play her story.
Keep going. You know, things can be hard when you're starting a business, but that's okay. Not supposed to be easy. Just keep going. You're on the right track. Stick with it. You got this. Hi, I'm Heather. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I am a pediatrician. I would say when I was younger, my purpose in life was to become a doctor and educate people in pediatrics. And I became plant-based myself in 2017 and completely changed my life. I have a genetic predisposition to early onset dementia. And when I learned that lifestyle has a big play there, that I can really change the trajectory of my life, I was really relieved because it's always been a worry of mine since I found out I had this gene defect. And I thought, well, this is my lot in life and genetics are genetics, there's nothing I can do. And when I found out that plant-based eating can help reduce my risk of getting dementia, it gave me a sense of freedom. You know, I've gained so much knowledge and educated myself on plant-based lifestyle and how impactful it can be for people and how so many people don't know about it. And so I just had something within me that I wanted to just let everyone know and spread the word, but I just felt stuck and didn't know what to do. And so when I got that email from Ocean Robbins and about the new PBCC program that was going to be starting in January, and a light bulb went off in me, and I felt like that was exactly what I was meant to do in my life. And I was so excited. For a long time, I wanted to do more in the plant-based realm and really didn't know what to do or what I wanted to do, how to do it. When I got that email, it all just clicked for me. And I felt like this is it. And that's when I started moving forward. And I really didn't know much about coaching. I had never been coached. And so I learned what that was throughout the program. And so I learned what it is to coach, how to be a coach, how to be effective. And so that was great from the program. And so now I put that into action and I started a coaching business. So I've had one client so far who is a friend of mine. She's also a mother of my patients, and we've been working together. She's been amazing. She's met all of her initial goals. We've got one more goal to work on, and it's been really rewarding. So I'm actively starting to do some more outreach on social media, and I'm setting up some Zoom Q&A sessions this summer to serve others and get some clients that way. So that's in the works, and I've been coaching a friend of mine for the last several months, and that's been going great as well. When I first went through the program, I was full-time, and I was a full-time pediatrician until 6 months ago. As I thought I could coach on the side of still being full-time, and I'm not sure really why I thought I could do that all, but quickly realized, well, it's going to be a lot longer being full-time to get a business running. So I went part-time this year to just focus on me, but also to have time to dedicate to my coaching business. In my pediatrics practice, I see a lot of families and children, and that's my audience right now to spread the word about a healthy lifestyle. There's this one patient, is a teenage boy, and he just a little bit overweight, and he had high cholesterol and elevated hemoglobin A1C. We talked a lot about the foods that can help him, the lifestyle that can help him, and I saw him back a few months later, and he put it all into action. He lost weight, his cholesterol normalized, his A1C normalized, and it was really, really rewarding for me. So for people who are thinking about transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle, the thing I like to have people focus on is adding foods to your diet. Think about adding fruits, adding vegetables, adding beans, adding nuts, adding whole grains. So thinking about what we can add to the diet versus what we're taking out. Because if we just kind of focus on, well, I can't eat this and I can't eat that, it just kind of puts a negative feel to it. So I like to have people focus on what we can eat, what we're adding, all to benefit our health.
Thanks so much to Dr. Gosnell for that moving story. If you're interested in becoming a plant-based coach, you can find out more about the program at certification.foodrevolution.org. It's a 6-month journey, and the next cohort launches in January. If you register your interest now with a refundable $100 deposit, you can lock in a super early bird special. Again, find out more at certification.foodrevolution.org. Vicky said, such great information, and surely would love to watch again. Being older, 75, and living on Social Security doesn't permit me to purchase, so I'll attempt to watch each day. Vicky, thank you for being here, and we're so glad that you're participating in the free summit and aiming to watch each day. Please keep doing that, and we want to make it easier for you to absorb all this information for life, so we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. Our team will be in touch. Congratulations. I know you will put it to good use. Now it's time for us to talk a little bit about food, and specifically recipes of the day. Some of you may know, by the way, Nicole D'Andrea Russert, my co-host in this summit, she and I have written a couple of cookbooks, including our latest Powered by Plants, nutrient-loaded 30-minute meals to help you thrive. It's available at poweredbyplantsbook.com. Let me make sure that's right. Is that the address? Anyway, yeah, poweredbyplantsbook.com. That is it. So anyhow, that's a great resource. And we got amazing recipes free right here in the summit. So today's recipes of the day include savory breakfast polenta with mushrooms and arugula. Savory breakfast polenta might not be your first thought when you think of breakfast, but that could change when you try this dish. Creamy and rich polenta are generously covered with sautéed mushrooms for an amazing umami flavor. Then it's topped with fresh avocado, bright arugula, and a touch of spicy jalapeno for a meal that's bursting with the nutrients and flavor. Next, we have Instant Pot rosemary and garlic chickpeas. This comes out perfectly in an Instant Pot, and I love Instant Pot meals because they're so simple. With savory garlic and herby rosemary added to the mix, you get a delectable pot of nourishing chickpeas that are irresistible and wholesome. And finally, we have the blueberry chia oat crumble. This is a high fiber, high antioxidant treat that's almost too good to be true. The combination of sweetness and crunch and the blueberry is enough to almost call it a dessert, but it could easily be an afternoon snack or an energizing breakfast. Baking the berries makes them extra delicious and extra juicy. So grab some blueberries from a local farmer's market or from the freezer and get baking here. I hope you enjoy some of these amazing recipes as we go through the summit. It's such a wonderful way to absorb what we're learning, to actually practice eating it. And these recipes are incredible, and Nicole has done such an amazing job creating them. Leah said, will you have an explanation on how to switch from keto to a carb diet without messing up all the hard work done while being keto? Leah, that is a great question, and I want to acknowledge the dedication that it takes to follow any structured way of eating, especially something as restrictive as keto. So first off, bravo for all the work you've already done for your health and for taking it seriously. You've already done what is for many people the hardest part, which is getting off of ultra-processed junk foods and processed sugars and processed carbs. For a lot of people, those are the most addictive. So congratulations, stay with that. And the key is moving from keto to a more whole food, plant-rich diet that also includes some healthy carbs. It can be done thoughtfully and without undoing the progress you've made. The key is to do it gradually and intentionally, with a focus on quality of macronutrients and especially carbohydrates that you add back in. So you want to continue to stay away from the processed foods and the refined carbs and the added sugars. And I suggest you add whole carbs in kind of slowly, starting with small portions of fiber-rich, slow-digesting carbohydrate-rich foods like sweet potatoes, quinoa, lentils, beans, and oats. They all provide lasting energy and support gut health, and they won't spike blood sugar the way that refined carbs might. You also may want to pair carbohydrates with protein and with healthy fats. This can help ease the transition and stabilize your blood sugar. So for example, try black beans with avocado, or a bowl of oats with some almond butter and chia or flax meal sprinkled on top. And you want to support your guts. You want to add fiber-rich foods to your diet because that's going to help you produce radical health benefits for your gut health. But it's important to go slow and avoid GI upset because anytime you haven't been eating a lot of fiber, and most people on a keto diet are not, it can take time for your body to adjust, your microbiome to adjust. Literally, there's bacteria in your gut that will propagate when they get the food they love, which is fiber. So we're going to talk a lot more about gut health tomorrow, but this is one of the key tips here. So gradually introducing prebiotic and probiotic foods like onions and garlic and leeks and fermented vegetables like kimchi or sauerkraut. Moving them in slowly can support digestion and reduce discomfort. And of course, listen to your own body. Everyone's metabolism is different. You might feel a shift in energy at first, and in time, a lot of people feel more vibrant and more balanced when they move towards a more whole food and plant-based direction. You're not undoing your hard work, you're building on it. And now you're going to give your body an abundance of nutrients and protective compounds that support not just weight maintenance and energy, but long-term health and resilience. So the transition's possible, and you're in the right place to learn how to do it in a way that honors your journey and your goals. Congratulations on being here, and I can't wait to hear how it goes for you. Roxanne said, I suffer from tinnitus and trigeminal neuralgia, both brain-related. Can they be cured as opposed to treatable? Well, Roxanne, thanks for your question, and I'm sorry that you're struggling with this. It can be really challenging to deal with tinnitus and trigeminal neuralgia. These are both neurologically based conditions that affect millions of people, so you're not alone, and they can have major impact on quality of life. And I want to honor the strength it takes to keep showing up and keep seeking answers. Now, when we talk about cure versus treatment, it's important to be clear as well as compassionate. So right now, both tinnitus and trigeminal neuralgia are generally considered manageable rather than curable by conventional medical standards. But here's where the conversation gets kind of interesting, because there's still so much we're learning about the brain's capacity to heal, to adapt, and to change. So one major study published in Frontiers in Neurology in 2020 found that lifestyle interventions, especially focused on mindfulness, nutrition, exercise, and sleep, can significantly reduce tinnitus severity and improve quality of life. The study concluded that a multimodal lifestyle approach had a measurable impact for a lot of participants, especially when it was combined with self-compassion and community support. Now, for trigeminal neuralgia, the research is still growing, but some people have reported symptom improvements when they eat a low-inflammatory diet, get plenty of magnesium-rich foods, and manage their stress, all of which can influence nerve function. A whole foods, plant-based diet that's rich in antioxidants and healthy fats and anti-inflammatory compounds may play a role in calming nerve irritation and supporting long-term brain and nervous system health. It's not a guaranteed cure. It can help create a stronger foundation for healing and resilience. It could make a world of difference. And even if it doesn't specifically cure those conditions, it could help your body overall and make you more resilient in facing them. And who knows, maybe it will. You're not alone in this, so keep exploring, keep listening to your body, and keep seeking the path that feels most empowering to you. And when you bring down inflammation and you bring down stress and you sleep better, it kind of tends to make just about everything better, especially when you're nourishing your body with healthy food. So we're honored to be on this journey with you. Missy from Australia said, my partner was diagnosed with shingles 10 days ago. At the beginning, he was completely washed out. No appetite for food of any kind, his face a mess, and we've been back and forth to the doctors in the first week. We were told there's no cure, just medicines to reduce the inflammation and the pain. We're worried about the possibility of his brain and eye being damaged. I'm trying to keep him as comfortable at home and eat even just a little so his body will get enough nutrients to fight the virus. Could you and Nicole suggest any high-density, nutritious foods that I can make at home for him, please? Since COVID-19, he's taken on a plant-based diet, as do I. Well, Missy, thank you for reaching out from Melbourne and for the love and care you're pouring into your partner right now. Shingles can be frightening, especially when it affects the face and the possibility of the eyes or the brain being involved. But I want to offer you some hope here. Nicole actually asked me to share something really personal with you. One of her close family members had shingles affecting the area around their eyes and head over 15 years ago. Understandably, they were really concerned at the time, but today they're doing remarkably well. They've had very minor lingering effects, an occasional itch and a bit of increased sensitivity to light, but their eyes and their brain are now functioning beautifully. And it's worth noting they've been eating a whole food plant-based diet, which may very well have supported their healing and contributed to their minimal long-term effects. So yes, shingles can be serious, and healing is possible. And what you're doing, offering nutrient-dense plant-powered meals and creating a comforting home environment and tending to your partner with love, is exactly what can help the body recover and restore balance. Now, a few nutrient-dense ideas that might help would be including blended soups and broths. Blended soups made with sweet potato or carrots or red lentils or greens like kale or spinach can be deeply nourishing, and they can be easy to digest. You could add some garlic or turmeric or ginger for their immune supportive and anti-inflammatory properties. Sipping on smoothies if he's having trouble chewing or swallowing. Smoothies can be a great way to get in calories and nutrients. You could try blending banana or berries or almond butter, oats, unsweetened plant milk. You can also add flax or chia seeds for omega-3s and a scoop of plant-based protein powder if he tolerates it. Side note, if you're adding flax or chia seeds, make sure that you consume it quickly because they will tend to absorb liquid and turn your smoothie into a glob if you don't drink it soon after blending. You can also add mashed avocado on soft grains. Avocado is rich in healthy fats, and soft grains like quinoa or oatmeal can be comforting and easy to eat. And of course, sipping on herbal teas for antioxidants and hydration. Keeping your partner hydrated is key. Herbal teas like chamomile, ginger, or lemon balm can help soothe his nervous system. And you could also add coconut water or diluted fruit juices for some electrolytes. You also may want to incorporate zinc and lysine-rich foods. Zinc's found in pumpkin seeds and chickpeas and lentils, and lysine is abundant in legumes and quinoa, and they're especially helpful for viral recovery. If whole meals are too much, even a small portion of these blended into soup or stew can make a difference. So I hope some of that is helpful, and we're just sending so much love to both of you, Missy, and all of our prayers with you in the journey. All right, folks, we're nearing the end of day 2 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. To express your opinions on today's episode and the summit so far, and to find out what other folks are saying, post and engage in the comments section on the broadcast page. You can refresh the comments with the button provided there to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. You can also join the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network. Come on back and join us tomorrow when we go live at 7:45 Pacific Time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 GMT, or at 11 Eastern when we start rolling episode 3, Nurturing a Thriving Microbiome, the Hidden Key to Immunity, Mood, and Longevity. It's gonna be amazing. In the meanwhile, you can post your comments and share in the conversation. You can catch and share the replays right here on this page. You can check out the empowerment package. You can enjoy our recipes of the day. If you're thinking about becoming a plant-based coach, you can go to certification.foodrevolution.org. We are wishing you a wonderful, healthy, and thriving day. And this is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 2 in the Food Revolution Summit. And here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Your health starts in the gut, where trillions of tiny microbes hold the key to digestion, immunity, even your mood. But what happens when your gut's ecosystem is thrown out of balance? The consequences can ripple through your entire body, impacting everything from energy to your risk of chronic illness.
If you wanted to start with a blank sheet and you wanted to design a diet which will give you terrible gut health, you would end up designing the standard American diet.
The gut, as you know, Ocean, is having a big moment. And part of that moment is people and the medical community realizing that gut health is essential for overall health.
Well, enter the probiotic industry, which in 2022 was worth about $60 billion a year.
There is no reason why anybody should be taking probiotics, because the research shows time after time that taking probiotics is not converting to any health benefits.
Fermented foods are rock stars when it comes to gut health. Not only do fermented foods significantly increase the diversity of your gut, they also lead to a reduction in inflammatory compounds in the body.
So instead of thinking about or investing money in probiotics and fecal microbial transplants, I wish people would focus on other evidence-based diet lifestyle interventions that help to build a healthier gut microbiome. So a healthy, diverse plant-based diet, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds in abundance and in diversity.
In this episode, discover groundbreaking studies showing how diet, movement, and lifestyle changes can transform your gut microbiome and your life.
What if you could protect your gut with every meal?
Join us as we celebrate the hidden world within you and learn how to cultivate your gut health for a healthier, happier future. At Food Revolution Network, we believe healthy, sustainable food should be for everyone. And when you give your body the right fuel, you can thrive. Each year, the Food Revolution Summit features world-renowned experts sharing life-changing insights. But with so much wisdom, it can be hard to take it all in at once. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. Lifetime access to every summit episode and interview, full transcripts, and over $1,000 in bonuses to help you absorb and apply it all at your own pace. When you invest in an empowerment package, you're taking a stand for your health. And you're also investing in the food revolution. You're joining a movement that's changing the course of history. Plus, with every package purchased, we donate to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. So if you want to nourish your body, support those you love, and help to heal the planet, this is your moment. Join us. Support the mission. Get your empowerment package today.